2025. It is 6:01 PM. We are on Zoom. Hopefully that's up and running again. We are being live streamed for local cable access and recorded for YouTube. And before we get started, if we could stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just for the record, I'd like to call the finance committee. Need the order, please.
We have treasury warrant approval for treasury warrant 26-5 and 26-PW5. We have a motion for approval.
Motion to approve Treasury Warrant 26-5 and 26-PW5.
Second.
I have a question. For the treasury warrant, Donna was here, I thought, but
She was here, yeah.
She was here, yeah.
She's been sending the electronic warrants and I appreciate that. I had a quick chance, I didn't have a chance to go through a lot. But I had asked about the KP charge, and a significant portion of the KP charges this past month were for the dispatch regionals or districting stuff.
Yep.
And so I think that they all came out of the general legal purchase services, but I didn't know if there was a way that they should be coming out of whatever the dispatch agreement is, if that makes sense.
I don't know if that was
It does.
related to the district or if that was
So
There might have been another matter.
Another
I
matter.
think, well, I
I
think
think it
some, I
was.
think that there were a few things, but I think some of it was for the districting also.
Oh, alright.
So I don't know if, I mean, I know we have a motion and a second on the floor, I just wanted to pull that up as we're going into the districting piece. Oh, there's Donna.
Yep.
Donna, I was just asking, sorry to catch you as you walk in, about the legal charges related specifically to the dispatch regionalization piece, not any of the other dispatch considerations. And I said, if I understand correctly based on the warrant, that everything has been paid out of the kind of the legal fund, but I don't know if, since dispatch is now a district, if any of those charges should be shuffled around out to be more dispatch specific, if my words are making sense.
I agree. I just wanted you guys to consider it, so, you know, knowing that our line item it hasn't been that way in the past. I simply was pointing it out that maybe we want to consider it in the future, for this year going forward.
That was gonna be my question, is this something for, we keep it as is for this, but moving forward?
Well, moving
Question.
forward, we won't have dispatch anymore in our
Right.
budget, so,
But for this fiscal
I just
year,
don't-
right? We still,
this fiscal year, why should the community of Rutland be paying for that when that's not being absorbed by, that was my thought.
oh no, I
Yeah.
agree, I'm just trying to understand if we can, if we think it's something we should do, can we fix it on this warrant, or is it something for moving forward?
Oh, I'm
we
sorry, I
need to
didn't understand that. No, I could do a journal entry if you asked me to, so,
for
yes, I
that?
could certainly make a change if you want me to.
Okay.
I thought maybe you wanted to have the discussion.
Right,
Right, we would need to include Mike and make sure.
Yeah.
I know where to take
agreed.
it from.
Yes,
I mean-
agree with Tamika, 100%.
My thought was just that if dispatch, if it's the current regional, like if it was through the regionalization, if it came out of dispatch's budget, then all those 5 communities that are made up are absorbing that cost that is for that specific transition, which Rutland was a big proponent of, but so was Barry and Hubbardston and Oakham and Warren. So I feel like I don't want necessarily our taxpayers to have that entire burden. And it may be fairly negligible in the scheme of things, but in the scheme of a year where we're looking for any last fund. So I don't know if we can ask, Donna and David to speak with Mike and figure out if that's an acceptable use and make a note for a journal entry for maybe next meeting or something.
Is the board amenable to that? Do we need a
I know
motion,
what's going on, but yeah. no
Yeah.
problem.
do we need a motion for that?
I don't think so.
just have Donna and David work with Mike to identify the appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think you need a motion, because you're, like Austin has always said, it's kind of ceremonial, you signing the warrant, but yet it is a requirement and it can't go
Yep.
forward without it. So, because a few of you get them electronically, I was just pointing it out that way.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that. I do have one other question on it. I was able to go through all of the invoices today. I happened to notice that there was one, and because this is right on the forefront of my mind, the library articles. There was, I think it came from the DPW, where there were, it was charged to the article for the library roof repair, which we had confirmed with Chris was completed. And it was for flooring, which I'm assuming is related to the water tank issues that we had, and I'm just wondering why that wasn't
I don't,
covered through the insurance piece.
so I don't enter the DPW ones, and I think I just missed it on my review. It's very easy to miss that type of detail on my review, so I'd have to look at the invoice myself, so you're pointing out something that I missed.
And again, just because it's at the forefront of my
Yeah.
mind, with the library articles. I mean, it's not a large charge, it's only $187, but if we can just look at that one as well. Any other discussion or questions on the warrant? All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Alex?
Aye.
Second I.
Whitman, I.
That's an
Ledger I. Okay, and then we have just one set of meeting minutes for approval, which was for the August 18th, 2025. I did review, and there was just one minor correction that I had just because my name was identified by mistake and I wasn't there, so I had Tamika fixed it for me. But I will entertain a motion to approve the August 18th, 2025 meeting minutes.
So moved.
second.
Any other discussion? Alex?
Aye. Second I.
Whitman,
That's an
Ledger abstained since I was not there and I didn't have a chance to review the whole meeting. Thank you. I will move into public comment. Is anybody here for public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
The Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee.
We have a topic.
Okay, cool.
I will get there, I promise, not to cut you off.
Nope, that's fine.
All right, then,
Yeah, excuse me.
oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
Carol Benoit, Turkey Hill Road. I was going to presume that this board knows that there is no custodial services happening in town right now. We have
Can
no
you-
custodians
Are you talking about in buildings?
at all in town. One is on disability leave and the other one retired.
Okay,
So buildings are not getting cleaned, barely getting trash picked up. I see that there is a job list posting for custodial, and I know that myself, I had spoken with the previous town administrator, wondering if it this would, I think, be an opportune time to think about having a service come in and do, rather than having people on our payroll. And it might be, again, I'm all for, look at the cost of doing both, long-term and short-term, but currently, there's no custodial in any buildings.
I'll work
Chris
with
did
David.
mention that to me, and that he had sent out an email to all the department heads, saying there was a gap in the coverage in terms of having the buildings clean, and he asked people to at least just try to help out this time by emptying their own baskets and things like that. So I know he's aware of it, and we're working towards, we could do a cleaning service. That's a pretty easy analysis to do. If the board's interested in pursuing that versus an employee of the town.
All right, we'll do some follow-up on that. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Quickly going to communications, member comments, announcements, town administrator update, just with a few updates for my part. I know it was a couple of weeks ago, but I did want to publicly congratulate our executive assistant, Tamika Murphy, for her receiving her designation as a Massachusetts Certified Public Purchasing Official.
That's great.
It's certainly an asset that will benefit the town. So congratulations to her. The Mid-State Massive Ultra Trail event, which I believe is a running event. I thought it was bike, but it's running. They will be passing through Rutland October 11th and 12th. The organization expects about 200 runners over a 4 to 6 hour period there. They had just reached out to Chief Monaco for his blessing to make sure everything was okay, and he provided his blessing. So just as a, for your information, that's, event will be happening October 11th and 12th. School is back in session, so we want to welcome back all of the Wachusett and Bay Path students. And just, again, make sure that everybody is aware with the increased the students that walk to school and the increased bus presence, and just be patient as everything gets back on schedule for the school year. The Citizens Police Academy, the police department is running that program again, and they are still accepting applications. It's a program that runs 12 weeks from now, I believe it started, was it this week, yesterday? Through November 17th, and those are Monday evenings from 6 to 9, so if you're interested, feel free to reach out and submit. There's a couple of events. The final concert on the Common is this coming Friday, so if you can, stop up. And then the first, the Makers Market for this month is also scheduled to take place on Saturday, and this event is also highlighting a mini makers market, so for the kids that are under 12 have an opportunity to go up and sell all their creations. And we had the dedication for the Community Grief Garden that was on August 24th. So the space there, which is right here behind the library, is now open for the public to visit. They are still accepting orders for memorial bricks, among other things. If you look on their website, I think they have a couple of different things. There's some benches, some things like that for donations that you can contribute to. And then I just wanted to acknowledge the memo that was sent out on my behalf today, just kindly requesting that all boards, commissions, committee members review the town code of conduct and ethics policy that we have, as well as any open meeting law regulations. I think Anita also sent out some information related to updated open meeting law guidelines, just for everybody to be aware. And she has requested that if you haven't, to stop up at the town hall and sign the paper that you have reviewed that information and that you're aware.
There's also some talk about having a class in town. I talked to both Anita and Tamika about it, because there's a whole lot of stuff.
Yes.
And 64 pages of fun,
It's,
and
it is.
we need a little bit.
We need a micro learning. Yeah, I was chatting with Anita and Ben about it a little bit too, and this, with cable having reached out to say that they could help with, some short videos, I thought this might be a good one, that if we have some slides, that we could do some sort of a micro learning that could also be sent out, just to hit the highlights of what's important, so we can talk about that too. And that's everything I have. Are there any other member comments, announcements?
I don't know, I received, a friend of mine dropped this off. An individual, Ellen Carpenter, I don't know if you know her. She sent an email through asking us if we would take a diligent look as a select board about what's going on in Oakham regarding the battery situation, the storage battery situation. And she said she'd be willing to come in and talk about it. She's done extensive research on it as to what it would be, what the pros and cons are. So I'm just throwing that out to the board, because I know we have a discussion coming up as would we want to invite somebody here to talk more on the pros and cons of that battery before we make a decision.
Thank you. Anybody else before I turn it over to David? All right, I will turn it over to you for updates.
All right, just wanted to let the board know that I had a discussion with the Green Communities Grant, DOER grant program relative to funding we had received for the heat pumps and for the IR heat system for the DPW building. It appears that we're not gonna be able to do the IR heat portion of it. The project was supposed to have been completed by 6:30 of this year. I talked to Kelly Brown and to Jane Pfister. And we've received an extension, at least for the heat pumps, until 6/31/25. That'll give us plenty of time. The company that we hired, they're basically, because the regulations had changed regarding the types of units that you can use, basically had to scope out the project again. And we're gonna be in the process of putting together the bid documents and getting that out to bid, probably within the next month. On the regional trash RFP that had been put out by the communities surrounding us, Oakham and others, the bids were due last week. They didn't get any bids at all. The group decided to extend the bid opening until September 5th because one of the vendors said that they needed more time to actually complete their bid proposal. It's all legal, trash is exempt under 30B, so that isn't even gonna be an impact. But we're hoping that by September 5th, that vendor will submit the bid and we can take a look at it and see how that fits with the goals and the plans for the communities that are involved, allowing homeowners to participate in the program. I've been working with Lizzie in Representative Ferguson's office regarding the COA issue, the ADA compliance grant that didn't get done by June 30th, and we are waiting to get a supplemental bill, which will basically recapture the earmark that was granted so that we can complete that project once the bill is approved by the Mass Legislature. I put together a town council form for the board. I didn't know there had been one in existence prior to this. The goal of which is basically to give to allow some type of control over the use of town council in terms of understanding what the individual board, department, or committee is trying to do, whether they've exhausted other resources that wouldn't require town council, to identify what the problem is, and basically get approval from either myself, the chair, regarding signing off on a request for council, so that, if an individual department calls town council, if they don't have a form, they're not going, a form signed by either I or Jen, they're not gonna act on the item until it's actually approved by one of us. So that, will eliminate any potential for people calling individually, and will actually be a way of controlling costs, because people sometimes don't realize there are other resources other than town council that they can use that cost nothing, by contacting the Department of Revenue, contacting the Secretary of State, things like that. Got a department head meeting tomorrow. We're gonna be talking about a lot of the issues we're gonna talk about tonight in terms of the budget guidance, special town meeting schedule, the annual town meeting schedule. I'm hoping to have like a roundtable discussion among all the department heads, just to get a sense on what's going to be happening in terms of the special town meeting, if they have any intentions to file an article, and whether that article is going to somehow or any way impact our budget or impact free cash, just to get this sort of a way to get a heads up on what's coming down the road before we actually close the warrant. I'm gonna review the town council review sheet with them, and then generally I have an opportunity for everybody to go around the table if they have some item that they think is important that they should share with other members, department heads, committees, and that kind of thing. It gives an opportunity for everybody to find out about what's going on in each of the individual departments. So that's it.
If we have, is it about town council?
Yes.
If we could hold that,
Yeah, it's on.
so it's on the agenda, so we'll get back
You have a
into that.
copy of that agenda? Excellent.
Yeah, it's in your packet.
Okay.
Thank you. Any,
David, tomorrow at your meeting, are you going to encourage your departments or talk to them about the open meeting law and the code of conduct and ethics?
Actually, I was gonna have Jen's letter there to explain what the process is. I don't think everybody has gotten it now, it's been distributed to everybody. But just as a reminder, hand it out again and get people aware that any potential legalities that may surround, discussions in emails and things like that, so.
Can I piggyback on that just piece? Can you reiterate please to department heads that it's their, I think it's their responsibility to communicate to their staff, because
Absolutely.
oftentimes I have heard the past few years that staff is not aware of things because it hasn't come from department heads.
All right.
So just please reiterate that department heads are in charge of their staff, and that for especially like open meeting law and code of conduct and all of that, and other things also, whether it's budgetary or whatever, that they also hold a responsible part of the organization as
Wouldn't
department
you have
heads
them
and stuff.
sign off like the rest of us? Jen, we should have all the employees sign off on it.
or do we, I don't know if that's within our
You've asked us
purview.
to.
Well, they're all considered municipal employees, right?
We're not subject to the
As
open
long
meeting
as-
law in the same way that an appointed member
Right.
is.
What's that?
They're not a
Employees aren't
public
subject
body.
to the open meeting law in the way that board and committee members are. So for example, I can communicate and reply all to the board, whereas the board members cannot.
So instead of the code of conduct, they have to abide by the employee manual, and they don't abide by the code of conduct.
Correct, so we have our own code of conduct in our employee personnel policies. So it's a little bit different. So not that there isn't a code of conduct that applies to staff, it's just the open meeting law doesn't apply to us in the same way.
Okay.
The minute individual members start conversing about any topic back and forth, it's considered an open meeting violation. You can't
Right.
talk about things that may be on an agenda where a decision will need to be rendered. So
Yeah.
that's the thing, that's the key part,
Yeah, so the policy that I had sent out is specific to boards, commissions,
Right.
committees versus town staff.
So the answer, Darren, is
Any other questions for David before we?
I did have one more thing. I got a notice today of Maya, they have a grant program, and in the past, they're not huge grants, they're like $10,000. They're geared towards, ways to protect employees through workplace safety and protect property, and they paid for things like trenches for the DPW, certain types of cameras for the police department. And Rutland in the past has applied for those grants. There hasn't been any in the last 2 or 3 years. But I think they're competitive, but they're not really super competitive. I think if the police, the fire, or anybody that, feels that they may have a need, and I can share that with all of the individual committees and boards and departments if you want. A project that is $10,000 or less, we can at least put an application in.
I think it's worth sharing the information with the relevant department heads and seeing if they have a need. I know some of the applications in a year like this where we're struggling for every last penny,
Yep.
it might be worth it. Sometimes it's a balance as to the infusion of staff power in the application as well as the monitoring throughout. I think the monitoring piece sometimes is the documentation monitoring is a challenge. So that balance, but I think it's definitely worth sharing with the department heads
Sure.
and,
I'm gonna talk about that
putting some more of the
tomorrow.
responsibility on the department heads for all of that. Thank you.
All right, if nothing else, then if the board is amenable, since we do have the Collins Center here, can we skip down to the town administrator profile and screening committee discussion so that we can let Mary and Becca continue on after? All right with everybody? No objections? All right, then, so for this item, we have the town administrator profile, which is essentially our job description that we will be using to advertise for the town administrator. We had Becca, meet with several members of the select board. Not everybody chose to participate in the interviews, but with the feedback that was received, we have the draft profile in front of us, so we are going to be reviewing that today for any suggestions, edits, that we wanna see on that. And then for the screening committee, just talk about, what type of committee do we wanna have in place, an appointed, committee, do we wanna have an appointed town committee, or there's the option of potentially using the Collins Center as the screening committee, so we can talk through those, different items, but we'll start with the profile. I will turn it over to you for.
Yeah, great. Do you all have a copy in front of it, of you? Okay. So thank you for all the information. You know, we got great information from town employees and for you all, and this draft was created. So really, if there's any comments on it, if you like it, don't like it, we can edit it in any way, shape, or form. This becomes your marketing tool. So we want it to be, and it really has to represent the board. The board is the appointing authority. So the world according to Mary, which is a happy place, doesn't matter. It's what you all want in the next town administrator. So it's important that there's agreement on what it says in the profile. So we can go section by section, or you can just, you know, if anybody had taken the, I'm sure you all took the time to read it, so if anything jumped out that you want edited, we can go through that now.
I'll open it up to the board for comment, feedback.
My only comment is I liked working with the Collins Center and Mary and Deb. And I think we had a great relationship in terms of discussion. So the only issue I have here is the salary range, starting at 150. I looked at a lot of other towns. I did an analysis, financial analysis of those towns versus us. And for our size town, 150 was pretty high. So the average for a town our size came in at about 120,000. When you look at the population, you look at the acreage, you look at the business, you look at the number of employees, our budget, that's what I came up with. So I think 150 is high on that as a starting point, because we can always negotiate higher on that. But to go from 150 seems to go up on that number, seems not to give us a lot of leverage. So, I mean, I'd recommend 140, not 150. I was thinking, if I can, I was thinking 135, 130, because with Austin's salary and then adjusting for inflation, that would bring us up to where we hired him at. So that was, but I think 130, 35 might be a little low, so I'd be happy with 140.
Alex, did you wanna say something, or, sorry, okay. I don't know if you have any additional perspective on the range,
Yeah, I mean, you'll be shocked to know Becca and I had this conversation on the way in. It's really tricky right now. So when you look at the jobs that have been advertised recently, they are on the higher scale. However, we also did a little work of looking around. I think the key there is, I love being able to say this, you're absolutely right. seeing that 150 will set an expectation of that's, the minimum. It would not, I think we have to be realistic about what the market is, but I would agree that we should amend it to be 140 plus or minus. That doesn't mean you can't pay 150, but it's kind of that expectation game of, it's really hard to know, but if you have the plus or minus, if you hire somebody who may be on the lesser side of experience, that gives you the flexibility. And if you hire a more seasoned person, you also have the flexibility. Because 140 can become 150. If you say 150, is that really 160? And then you're getting out of your reach. So it's always a gamble, but I think if you said 140 plus or minus, we'll be okay, knowing that you might have to move.
It was definitely a hard question for me to think about too, what the salary should be, because you want somebody with the experience, which is going to come with a higher price tag. And I think we've talked about that as a board, that there seems to be an agreement that we need an experienced person, and if you look at the feedback that we got from the committees and boards that responded, experience was a consistent theme. So I think if the Collins Center seems to be amenable to it, or that we have some flexibility with that, it can still draw in the interest of experienced people where we might be able to negotiate if necessary, but it won't be an immediate, it's not enough for me to even consider applying for that. So I appreciate the comment here. I don't disagree.
Through the chair. Mary, you're seeing a tight pool out there, if I use the word right.
Mm-hmm.
Of that tight pool, are you seeing 10s on administrators? Or are we looking at 8s or 5s as a ranking of their qualifications and everything else? All the stuff we're looking for, you put that together, are there 10s out there? Or do we look at 8s or 7s? Because my whole thing on this was, if we do 150 and we get a 7, that's his expectation of what the minimum is. Whereas if we get a 10, he knows he's gonna ask for a lot more, so if the board wants him, we're gonna have to do more. So that's why I'm saying, what's the pool that you think we would get at 140?
Well, I think the pool you're gonna get is all 12s, so I will never comment on a previous pool. The right person for the job, not gonna go there.
Okay.
I think we get a wide range of people. Let me give you an example of a recent search. We got a wide range of people. Some were on the way up, some were in the middle, some were, more seasoned. I call myself vintage or seasoned. So I wouldn't comment on that. You do a great job on your profile, so people who are not qualified don't apply. That's why the pools are smaller. We will share whatever the interview panel is, everybody who applies, because when we say things like any equivalent combination, sometimes you'll have some newer people in the field, recent grads who have the degrees but not as much experience, but may have some of the technical skills. Maybe they were a specialist. So we see a host of combination of talents. Sometimes you'll have a town planner who hasn't been a town administrator, but has, many years of experience. So I couldn't give you that answer, but, we see strong pools, but they're smaller.
Okay.
I have a couple questions more so on the profile itself. Under the town of Rutland, for the second paragraph, the town is part of a unified, I would call us more of a regional than a unified school K-12 system, the Wachusett Regional School District. And then I don't know if you want to add in also that we're also part of the 10-member I think it's 10-member community Bay Path Regional technical high school. So that's high school side only, but the individual would be working with 2 regional school systems. And large regional school systems. Wachusett, I believe, is the largest in the state, and then Bay Path as a high school is, I believe, 10-member communities. And then under challenges and opportunities, the 1 to 3rd bullet down, navigate labor relations, I believe it's 5 active unions. I believe we have sergeant, patrol, fire, DPW, and we added a clerical a couple years ago. So I don't think I'm missing any other ones, but I just wanted to make sure that it's 5 instead of 4. And that the clerical one is new as of a couple years ago, and that seems to be newer in a lot of communities, so. Thank you.
Easy.
I was gonna mention Bay Path, but she did, so that's the end of that.
Just a note on the salary I'm fine with starting at 140, but I think we have to be understanding that with the turnover we've had in recent years, somebody, and I guess I'm saying this as somebody, if I were to look at this job, I'd be very concerned with making this move with the turnover we've had. It's a gamble for an employee to jump into this situation with where we've been. I mean, hopefully going forward it's gonna be better, but they don't know that, right? So what are they taking this job for, if not for money? So I'm a little bit scared at setting our expectation that it's gonna be on the lower side, based on the fact that it's gonna take something to get somebody here. Hopefully they get, infected by the charm, but
And
they're here for the money.
if I can piggyback on that, Alex, I think a little bit also is to Jen's point, the feedback that we receive from boards and committees is a well-experienced individual, and I think a lot of what came out in the profile is kind of that HR need and strong management, a stronger management piece that I think is not for everyone, and that niche may need to come with a higher salary, especially with the years of experience. That it seems like the boards and committees, and Mary, I know you said we're kind of all over the place, and I know in past searches we've been all over the place, but I think if that's a strong consideration and push for the organization as a whole, then we need to be prepared that number is not going to be where it has been previously.
I think regardless of the number that you put in there, giving us that charge to say, look, we're not being unrealistic or naive. Your willingness to pay might be there. Sometimes your ability, I would wager a bet that you can't pay 175. So let's be realistic, but let's not, this is the finesse part.
Right.
But we will tell candidates there may be some flexibility, but not, what Plymouth is paying or whatever. I'm not gonna
Right.
choose a surrounding municipality to compare you to. But us knowing that will help when we talk to people.
And I think it will be important, again, in some of the feedback that we got, and I also agree with, they're gonna need to provide specifics and demonstrate their ability to handle certain situations, not just say they have the experience. We need to know that they can actually do what is on the piece of paper that says they can. And again, to Leah's point, it is very HR heavy, which I think this town requires, but we need to have the actual evidence, if you will, to demonstrate that they can perform those actions. And again, that goes along with, if you have the experience and you show you can do what we need you to do, that assists with hopefully some of the negotiating discussion when it comes to the salary as well. Paul, anything else from you?
Oh, question. you have September 19th down here. Is that doable? As far as review of that? So, I mean, will that change?
Once you approve it, it will change.
Can you give us an idea?
Lately, now that you're past the summer, you don't need as much time. People apply the first week and the last week. So if you gave 6 weeks, we'd be wasting 4 weeks, you know. So we've been doing 3 to 4 weeks of a posting,
Okay.
not more than that. It used to be, because we had to get to all the papers and all of that. There's a lot of one-on-one listservs, web pages, you know, we can do a massive email and hit hundreds and hundreds of people, you know. But we also, which is where that finesse comes in, we know enough of the people out there, you know, we've been fortunate, we just hit 279 out of 351 municipalities that the Collins Center has worked with. You know, so we know all of their finance people, all of their, you know, I've already made up my mind that somebody who's an assistant town administrator, HR director, which is a real role in a lot of municipalities, you know, might be ready for the jump. So we're gonna target people, that's what we do really well. We won't poach from somebody we've placed, but we haven't placed anybody in this area lately, so, you know, we say we won't poach in the first contract. You know, so when we hire somebody, we won't poach them for another job. They can leave on their own if they get an ad, so.
Are you looking at October 1st if I can kind of push a little?
Well, yes, if theoretically, if it gets approved, as with a few notes, we will get it posted. What's the date on Friday?
Okay.
Yeah, September's a long month. Yeah, it would be, we'd have a deadline in.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the day of the week of the,
I might do this. Like
1, 2, 3. I would do the 30th or the 1st. I'd do October 1st.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with you tonight. I'm gonna, on purpose, not agree with you. I'm gonna say September 30th.
Okay.
Any thoughts or suggested changes? Okay.
We have here a population of 9,100. I think we have a little more than that.
97.
I just want them to understand that
you wanna-
we're close to 10,000.
Is that the, okay, what is it, 97?
I think it's 97 as of the most recent census.
Unless that says
Might be
97.
the 2020 federal census number, so.
Right,
Postal
that
census
might
is
be,
higher.
Oh,
right.
yes, yep.
Your number is more accurate.
And actually, just looking at this on that right-hand side under town government where it says town administrator act, are you referring, is that the bylaw that you're referring to?
Oh, yeah, I call it act, it is a bylaw.
Okay.
Right.
That might be just a technicality, but. All right, so a couple of things that we had mentioned for modification, the inclusion of Bay Path in the Town of Rutland section, just confirming that it's the 5 unions that we have, and adjusting the salary to 140 plus or minus. Does that sound like all the modifications?
You'll do September 30 yourself.
Oh, and
We'll adjust the date, yes.
Okay.
the date,
And under the community information, town government, you'll adjust that.
yes, yep,
The only other thing was the regional school versus the unified school for one Tuesday.
thank you.
And then what you just said, the town administrator bylaw non-act.
Yeah.
I know you just said it before you started listing, so.
All right, so then if there is no other discussion or edits, I will entertain a motion to adopt the profile for the town administrator position with discussed edits.
I move to adopt the town administrator position profile for the Collins Center with updates.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call, Alex,
What I,
Second,
Tim and I,
Matt's and I.
Ledger I. All right. All right, one step closer. So then the next item is the screening committee topic. And let me go notes here. Mary Beck, I might have you go into some more details for the screening committee, but we will be working with a screening committee, one way or the other. We have in our packets, there's two different ways that we can go about doing this. The board-appointed screening committee, which is the board can decide on various representatives from town to appoint to the committee and have them be the initial interviewing screening committee that would then recommend a smaller pool of candidates for the select board once we get to that final round. The other option is to have the Collins Center act as the initial interview panel to go through those. So we have the document in your packets that kind of shows some of the pros and cons of each of those options, and Tamika was gracious enough to go through the history and just outline the past couple of town administrators, or all the town administrators that we've had, and the ways that they were interviewed, just for reference. I don't know if Mary or Becky, you have any initial thoughts on your version of pros or cons for appointed versus having the Collins Center?
We kind of supplied some of the information. It was finessed beautifully and put in very nice form. It really is the will of the board. There's pros and cons to both. It depends on how each of your individual members' perspective of what is best. So really, I think it really is the will of the board. We can do either. The standard in many searches is to use an appointed screening committee. One of the, you all can read what's on there. The reasons you do that is you get local lenses on things, more. Some boards each get to appoint a member, so there's 5 members on the committee. The con to that is that fear that you're the inside person and you're gonna learn more about the candidates, but you don't, so that can be disappointing. Screening committees are tougher to schedule than an interview panel. So really, it's laid out beautifully. It really is, it really is what is your gut telling you. It's a control issue. Either one is, a trust of the panel or of the screening committee to give you those finalists. So what makes the most sense for you is really, it's for you all to decide.
And we did have, I believe it was distributed to the board, the makeup of the board-appointed committee, your recommendation is generally to, like, the types of individuals or positions that we could look to appoint would be a planning or zoning board chair or member, the finance committee chair or member, library trustees chair or member. We have the charter study chair or a member, the town moderator, one of the public safety chiefs. Here's the human service or cultural board or commission member. So those are the types that the Collins Center sees typically appointed. I think from my perspective, I question the speed with which we can set up an appointing committee. And if we are to define which positions we would like to see as part of this, can we get agreement from those other people? Do they have the time? Are they willing to do that? What if we say we want somebody from the finance committee to be on this and nobody has the time and unfortunately is not able to volunteer? Then we have to come back and we have to appoint another role. So, and not to say that we can't do it, but I do think the process would take more time, I think, to identify who we would like it to be and confirming that those individuals would be willing to perform that role.
For me personally, I didn't look at the list for whom typically is appointed, but my initial gut was the time. I had concerns about the amount of time it would take to get that up and going, and knowing that time seems to be of the essence also. And also, I think it's not a surprise with this board, I have severe confidentiality concerns with no matter what. The past few couple of years have not been the best as far as I'm concerned on the confidentiality side. And so I worry about that for ourselves as a community, but also for any candidates that are putting their info out there without public, wanting it to be public, or have it get back to their community that they have been looked at for a different position.
Through the chair. Mary, the Collins Center helped us get Margaret Nardowitz. And since then, you haven't worked with us.
Correct.
What has changed since then in terms of how towns look at you or search committees? Because there's a broad spectrum of time where things have changed.
Yeah, has it been 10 years? Even in 10 years, social media has increased. I think our culture and climate of social media, and so I think part of that is, it's always been politics, but it's so much more visible, and there's so much, since COVID, I've seen a bigger shift and increase in the issues of the agendas of individuals, maybe on a committee, whether it's an elected board or I want this representation on the committee. So we have seen it be more challenging which is probably why the trend to do more interview paneling. And the best people are the busiest people, and you can't get to the meetings sometimes, So the pros and cons of doing a screening committee versus an interview panel through us, and we would broaden our panel, so it wouldn't just be the Mary and Becca, we would, have broader people, is if you all agree it should be what, we wanna do what you all believe is best. Split votes can be challenging in this situation because then there's not buy-in for who the finalists are. If we had a screening committee of appointed people, we would all have our say and our lens in there. So we really want it to be unanimous, if it can be, because then it is the will of the board. So that's why the pros and cons for you all to debate is really what we are looking for, because your interim has been on a screening committee with me before, and that was an appointed group. They worked beautifully together. So it works either way, so long as there is the will to not have an agenda one way or another. So I think that's my diplomatic try of saying that. So there are certainly efficiencies to an interview panel. There are benefits in terms of input, but we did get nice input on the profile. You collected input from boards and committees. So you've done this recently. You're the ones with the experience in this in recent years. So we would really want to do what you want to do.
May I ask a question? When the Collins Center did the first worked with us first 10 years ago or whatever, did you bring forth a select group of candidates for the board then to do like a final interview, or did you present the one and only candidate?
Oh, finalists, we would never present, thank you for asking that. And then because again, the town was not able to reach agreement with the selected candidate. It was over money, it was extended, and then there are a handful of finalists brought forward. So if I recall, and I did look up the emails, I think there were more than a few. And quite frankly, a few were like, oh, you're bringing 5 forward, that's a lot to be one of 5 and have my name be out there. So we'll have those conversations, but we don't put forward B candidates just for filler. And that would be true with a panel or a screening committee.
Yeah, cause I know for the second one on our list, we had 3 candidates that we had interviewed as a board. And then, I believe for all of them, we had 3 candidates, so I just wasn't sure, I wasn't involved in the first, so I wasn't sure what the.
Yeah, we would not, our practice is 5 is a lot, 2 is too few. Most of our final groups are 3 or 4 people. 4 can become 3 really quickly, 3 can become 2 really quickly. But you don't want filler either, just like your grade 7 to 10, they're all gonna be 10s. For different reasons sometimes.
And tens for our community and maybe not 10s for a neighboring
Correct.
community, but
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you're special.
we're all unique.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Well, Alex, any?
Yeah, I would prefer the screening committee to be done through the council. I think time-wise, I was trying to think of the timeline. If resumes are received by October 1st, that basically gives us tonight and then next meeting to determine who the screening committee is, and if we have to then change, I mean, it's just very, very tight.
And fall tends to be a crazy time for
Right.
other people, and we get towards the holidays and everything. I don't.
I agree with Alex. Living in this town for over 40 years and being my ear to the ground for many of those years and seeing what happens or what can happen, and I've seen it happen over the years in this town, that I would also opt for the Collins Center interview panel.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And I think I echo the majority of the board too, that we need the quicker process and the ease of conducting those initial interviews. The knowledge of the Collins Center also to be able to look at the resumes and say, this corresponds with the information that has been provided by the board for what we feel the town needs and that the qualifications meet those. The confidentiality aspect and the impartialness of, and I 100% appreciate everybody that volunteers for the boards and committees that we have on town, but we have a lot of people that have been on these boards for a very long time. So it's not, a constant new influx of other residents that like to get involved as well, so like I said, the impartial perspective of it is also a positive for me as well. So it sounds like the board seems to be in agreement.
So I would move to approve the Collins Center to serve as the interview panel for the candidates applying for the TA position.
There's a motion,
Second.
is there a second? Thank you, Harry. Is there any other discussion?
Just to clarify, we're calling it an interview panel, it's really a screening committee, right? Because we're still interviewing, so is that the proper, I just wanna be careful that we're not
It's
sending out.
just a terminology on the sheet,
Okay.
and so I think
That was
Same
the
thing.
term Mary used.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Mary?
however you wanna, you can say preliminary, it's fine, you can call it a screening committee, it doesn't matter, preliminary screening committee. Cause screening means we're giving you finalists, so, we were just distinguishing the two.
That's fine.
Through the chair. Mary, will we get to see all the applicants at some point in time?
No,
We won't.
and that would be true whichever way you go. The names are never public unless they're finalists. Because the minute you get them, those resumes are public.
Okay.
What we can do is a summary of the type of people that applied,
Okay,
so we can do that to get to your issue, but cream rises and You wouldn't get that even with a screen,
Okay.
an appointed
But
panel.
you can give us some information of the people who applied,
Correct,
like a Cliff Notes version.
correct.
Okay.
And it won't rhyme with the town of whatever, you know. We won't give you that.
I got it. Thank you.
Alright, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Alright, roll call. Alex?
Would I?
Second I.
Wait a minute.
Matt's and I.
And Ledger, aye. Thank you very much. Alright, so we have
Thank you.
the profile and the
Great.
screening committee, and so the charge we don't need.
You know, we've got your charge, that's right, we are
Charge, so
charged
we're
with
good.
that. And we will, Becca and I will be on that panel, but we, as you may know, we have 40 associates, many of them are recent town administrators, so we will pull somebody who, Becca has been, Becca's the perfect person to be on this because she has in 2 municipalities been the ATA HR director. So she has been very similar roles and we will bring in at least one more of our colleague who has been a sitting longtime town administrator, so we'll be well served.
If I may, Jen, does the Collins Center have access to the letters that we received from the COA and FinCom and the RDIC? No, just provide them though.
That would be lovely.
We received a few letters from boards
Great.
and committees, and that can just help you not to fit into the profile, I don't think,
Good
because
frame.
it's kind of there already, but just for when you're looking at candidates and everything, some input from those boards and committees that
Great.
provided
Yeah.
information, if
The
you're
more input, the
amenable to
better,
that.
that's fine.
Yep, I'll send them to you.
Yeah, great. All right, well, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, we
Thank you.
appreciate you
Drive.
coming out.
Oh, sure, it was easy.
Alright, jumping back to old business, we have the FY 2027 budget objectives, and guidance discussion. So again, this was the documents that were introduced a couple meetings ago. Essentially the goal being to provide guidance for department heads as they are formulating their budgets for FY 2027. And we'll talk about the guidance first before we get into the schedule. Is there any feedback? We have obviously the finance committee here as well. Joint discussion, any thoughts on modifications to starting with the memo portion with the budget priorities, the budget guidance that's outlined? Essentially it's starting, the goal would be to have them define their budgets as a restorative budget back to FY 25 service levels. So it's not going to be a level funded for their monetary budgets because obviously the cost is going to have increased. So we want to get them back to what the service levels were and identify what that cost is for FY 27. And then anything over and above the restorative budget is where this proposed budget increase request form comes in. Where they would need to outline exactly what the additional cost is, what the reason is, how much it's gonna cost, is it a recurring cost, is it just a one-time cost, just so that we can have it for planning purposes for the following budget years. I believe Finance Committee had the feedback for the increased request form to put that into an Excel format. So Tamika and I had been kind of playing around with that a little bit, so I don't have any objection to including it all as, in a single format for the department heads to fill out. So I just wanna get the board's feedback on the content of the increase form and see if there's any concerns or changes with that. The format we can play around with on how it would be best, to organize it for the department heads.
Just a couple comments, if I may. Yep. I think, thank you for kind of highlighting and emphasizing that, that last paragraph of the first bullet on the first page under the fiscal year 2027 budget priorities. The goal is to make this a restorative budget back to fiscal year 25 service levels. Is there a way to highlight that it's a service level piece that we're, that it's clear to all department heads? Some department heads will get it for sure right away, and not sure that others would, and so I just wanna make sure that for the community, as well as department heads, and their staff, that it's the service levels and not the dollar amount.
Yeah, we can certainly bold that out and David,
Just
if you
underline
can,
it.
yeah,
I'll just
make sure to
And
clarify that.
I think, I mean, I'm not 100% sure how this whole process is going to work, but I would assume our finance director would be involved also, and so if it's easier to have things in Excel file format versus a fillable PDF or Word document, just for translating and copying, pasting to play with numbers, for town administrator and finance director, I think that would make the most sense personally. I know the fillable forms are great for some things and other things, when it needs to be a little bit more. And who has access to it, I think is hugely important, because we've gotten in trouble in the past when there's been almost too many hands in the pot. And that then certain numbers get changed or certain versions or whatever, so,
Version control.
right, and people are working at the same time on different versions, so just to try to.
Yep,
that-
this is just intended to be the guidance for the department heads to use, so whatever Excel spreadsheets that we would normally use, whatever is decided on from that point is not I'm not intending to change any of that, it's whatever works best for Dawn and the department heads, so.
No, but I'm just saying that even once whatever the final format is goes out, then as the budget is being developed, who has access to what versions and how it's edited, I think we need as a point of conversation with the administrator
Sure.
and finance director,
Yeah.
how that works, because too many hands in the pot can create too many versions or mixed versions or whatever, so.
My assumption is the department heads would have access to fill it out, so we know what those numbers are, and then whatever the normal process, to your point, how do we keep a master version of what it is to say this is the most up to date, so Dawn, I certainly don't wanna speak for you what that process generally is.
Would be one gatekeeper,
Yeah,
basically.
but we wanna make sure that we're not, if we can avoid duplication, is it something where department heads would have access to be able to update it, and then Donna's got access to make whatever changes? Like, we don't need everybody in a department to be able to
You
update it,
would,
but
generally, if you wanna do that, you would just shut off access to it
Right.
from the department heads at a certain point,
At a
and
certain
then
point.
therefore,
if we can do that, that would be
that's what you would
ideal.
do.
But again, I'm not going to,
I just wanted to put
Yeah.
it out there that I want it to be as easy and streamlined, and I don't think we need to manage that as a board,
Agreed.
but just put it out there that, finance director and town administrator, I think, need to figure out what works for them,
best.
and just be mindful of past challenges, and
So, if I can, tonight is the first night I've seen this, so I don't really understand what the plan is, but it will be a work in progress, but it's saying that everything's being distributed at the department head meeting tomorrow, but yet forms haven't been created for the budget, so.
The only thing that I'm hoping to have done here tonight is the approval of the guidance memo and essentially the content of this budget increase request form. We can still work on the best way, the memo is there to go out to the department heads, they don't have to start working on their budgets right now, those whatever forms for input don't have to be available tomorrow. It's just when you start working on your budget, which per the guidance is going to be submitted if it's approved for November 3rd, this is how you're supposed to approach your budget when you're looking at it. So if the forms are not ready for another week or 2 weeks, I'll leave that to you and David to have whatever we need to ready so that they have enough time to submit those budgets for November 3rd. Really, it's just the guidance for them on formulating their budgets that we want them to have sooner rather than later.
And Donna, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you hadn't seen this. I would have assumed that the finance director and the town administrator would have been involved, so I'm sorry for that. So thank you for being here tonight, for that.
So I think the only thing that the finance committee would like is, it says January 14th, we would like to as soon as you guys have the best rough draft, we would like a copy of it that we're not gonna affect the town, but we would like to review that. So we can let the gatekeeper go through it, but we would like, as soon as you guys have it, we would like to distribute it amongst our members and take a peek at it and put eyes on it. But we're not gonna be able to live or go in and touch anything that's in there. We would merely make recommendations to the town administrator if he's, or the new town administrator or wherever we are in the process. Is that right, guys in the back?
We'd like it in Excel, not
Yes,
PDF. Because we can do a lot of manipulation on our own copies and still allow the finance director and the town administrator to have their own. But a PDF is 180,
Useless.
it's useless.
And are you looking just for like the department budgets, not inclusive of
No,
revenue?
the entire,
Everything.
everything in
Okay.
Excel. Makes it so much easier for us to be able to do analysis and whatnot.
As soon as we.
as soon as we can get it, and then and that's the best copy that the town administrator has and the financial director has at that time. And then we'll have our copy, we'll work with it, and then if we have anything that we see or notice, we'll let you guys know.
Any feedback on the increase form, the content?
Recurring is incorrectly spelled. It's re-curring and it's recurring is one word. Sorry.
And just for triple clarification, this is, and maybe this can also be highlighted on this sheet as well when it becomes final, that items that exceed the fiscal year 25 service budget amounts and not dollar budget amounts, because when I was reading this, I was going back to the fiscal year 25 dollars. So
Yeah.
just for clarification, because it'll be separate, right? Like one, I assume, would be a PDF or Excel versus a memo that they got. Like one's a working document that should have the directions, yeah, on it as well as what the memo is.
I would suggest that it's left at the wording, because I do believe that our intent is to prove to the townspeople that they need this money. And even if it's understood that that's the service level that's the needed service level, I believe having a qualification with that request and to tell the townspeople from the department heads on why this current year budget made it hard for them to do their job will help in the argument that this is necessary.
So we had some discussions on that because I feel like this is an interesting year to do something like this, because we'd like to get back to that restorative budget, and I personally want to know what that bottom line number is just to get us back to FY 25 service levels. On top of that, I want a separate number that is inclusive of all the, on top of the restorative budget, so that, again, as a point of discussion for the public, we can say, this is just to get us back to where we need to be to operate. Then we have the discussion points of, well, somebody is requesting an additional position to do X, Y, Z, that's gonna cost this much money. Can we afford to put that in the budget? And that's where the additional piece comes in. But I think having some differentiation, just to say bottom line, to operate, this is what we need, and if it comes to that for an override, to say, this is the minimum that we're looking at just to get us back. Here's what we're looking at, but there's all these other things, what do we wanna consider adding in as an additional piece? So I think having some differentiation, and I think we talked about ways that, again, having Donna here, that we can organize some of that information to help put some of those numbers together. in that way, so we can say this is,
Which, could you expound on, so that I'm clear on how to prepare the forms, if that's what you're asking me to do?
yes.
Can I?
But that was I'm sorry, that was a question. I'm not clear on how the forms are, and maybe this isn't the venue to have that
Yeah.
detailed conversation. But my thoughts are that we need a column of, this is without an override, and what we would lose, and this is with an override. Eventually, it's gonna have to get to that, because that's what town meeting will have to
Right.
be contingent upon.
Correct. But this, so my initial goal with this is regardless of override or not, this is what our departments are telling us they need to operate.
Exactly.
One budget. And from there, then we have the discussions on what happens if do we need an override? What happens if we don't? We're gonna need to have the conversations of some sort of a contingency plan if an override does not pass. What do those cuts look like? But
And
for
I
this.
think that's what we could have done better this year is,
Right.
so if it's not brought forth in the initial budget, then the department head feels they didn't make the decisions, and
But I think we can make sure that they are involved in those conversations. But the guidance memo here is for one budget to be created as a starting point for discussions as we continue through the budget season. This is our starting point. This is what we need. And then have the discussions as we continue to say up or down, we can afford this, we can't afford that, with the department head feedback. If we need to, where do those cuts happen and what do they look like? But I think that is something we need department head feedback on, is what is the contingency plan we're looking at if we need an override and it doesn't pass, we need the feedback on.
So if I may, and sorry Donna, this isn't gonna, but if I may, to Alex's point, and I'm looking at the form in a different light now, we have current budget amount, which would be this current fiscal year dollar amount. So I'm just gonna say, like, let's say, and I'm just gonna throw out, like, it's totally arbitrary. DPW is $100,000. And then that's what this year's budget is. But to get back to fiscal year 25 service level, let's say we need to go, and again, just totally arbitrary, 120,000, because we had the cuts plus inflation, right? And so the increased request amount would be 20,000, and then in that item, so this would be a cumbersome year for department heads, because almost every line item is gonna have to have one of these forms submitted to justify, this is restorative, we had a $15,000 cut of needed services, and then we have a $5,000 adjustment for inflation over 2 years ago.
Yeah, but so so there's gonna be a lot of, I don't know if it's a lot of, that might be the wrong term. There's going to be people that will say, the budgets were cut, the town is still operating, cause they may not see everything going on. They're gonna say, why do we need to go back to service levels of FY 25 and to say that the reasoning behind going up is restorative is not gonna, pun intended, restore any confidence in the townspeople that that's actually needed. So there needs to be a qualitative reason for us increasing any budget line right now, because there's going to be a lot of people, I don't know if a lot is the right word, but there's going to be a contingent of people that are not convinced.
Well, and I was gonna say maybe it's not only restorative, to your point, Alex, but then it's like to meet safe staffing minimums, or to be able to provide 24/7 coverage, or to be able to have whatever, to your point, Alex, what makes that restorative and what the benefit we're going to see.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I like the thought. And maybe, if possible, we should have them describe what harm was done to their department or committee by not funding it. Because that will hit home, I think, with citizens more than just saying, We need it because we didn't do well last year. What harm was actually done with the cut? Because last year, we always said, if this is cut, this is cut, this is cut, it's gonna be terrible for the town, and people aren't gonna be taken care of and everything else. I think people are scared of, are we telling them the truth? And the only way to me to solve that problem is for departments to say, yes, this is what happened. COA, our bus could only run 2 days a week, not 3 days a week, so a lot of our seniors couldn't get to the places they needed to be, whether it be medical or whatever. That's the kind of stuff I think we need. So if we're asking for the money, then that needs to be justified.
And I think a fully reasonable and expected response in some of these things is, my staff or I had to work 60 hours a week instead of our contracted 40 in order to keep up with the demand. I mean, those sorts of things are probably happening to some degree, and the townspeople need to be aware that this is something that's happening, because they probably aren't. So and I'm not saying that not saying that any change here needs to happen, it's just, we wanna capture both of those pieces of information of a restorative, the reasoning, and then also, I also need XYZ to do, these additional things. And that to me is almost, to me, I know you said one budget, but to me, that's really two budgets, and it's, honestly, two qualitative statements on the one budget to bring up to service level, and then one budget for a wants budget, right?
So, I mean, that could, under the budget guidance section for the budget increase request form, that could be modified to say that you essentially need to have this filled out for anything, even for a restorative from whatever your current budget is, to get back to the FY 25 service levels, and note that includes XYZ for this.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases that's gonna be probably a good thing. In other cases, it's probably gonna be a very short description, right? So like this sort of level of detail may or may not be needed. And maybe that's, for the restorative budget, it's literally just an Excel going down, bringing to restorative numbers, and then a comment next to the Excel, so it's not necessarily this level of detail, but it's just, it's something, we need something, right? And then we do this is for any asks above that, where it's very detailed, it's very informative, and it's very not cumbersome, because it's not the right, but it's there's more to it.
That's why I this was difficult to figure out how to word the guidance, because for example, I took a lot of this, I was reviewing Paxton's documents, and what they do for their budget guidance is for their departments, they say, you get 2.5%. Your budget cannot increase more than 2.5%. Anything over that, they have a form, you fill it out, you explain why. So I feel like in subsequent years for budget planning, something like this where you can say, start here, don't go over 2.5%, anything after that, then fill out the form. But for this particular year where we're trying to establish a process and understand exactly what is included in this, I went back and forth on, do we go through and ask the department heads to fill out all that? Cause it's gonna be,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. But I'm hoping if we're able to continue a guidance memo and continue utilizing this increase form, once we establish where we're at for this FY 27, moving forward for subsequent fiscal years, it'll get easier. But I think it's just getting there right now to have that starting point. I agree, I would like to have it. I think it's just making sure that we word it, that we'd also like this form documented to show what is the amount for your current budget and what is the increase requested to get you back that restorative piece as a separate line item, if you will, to understand, if that makes sense. Donna?
So having a November 1st or 3rd deadline is before the special town meeting. So we're not I mean, many discussions at many meetings have said we're gonna restore budgets at the special town meeting, and that is a subject that we'll be discussing in a few minutes. I think November 3rd is premature because we don't know what will be voted at a special town meeting
Budgets will
November
be.
20th. I think maybe a December 1st or December 24th or 25th submission is wiser. I think we're rushing a little more, and I think we're gonna make it complicated in the long run.
So, I mean, if I can, I don't know that what their budgets end up being with town meeting changes what they need to run their department, though. I mean, just because they're back up to that budget amount doesn't mean that the town necessarily in total believes that that's what they actually need. So I see your point and I don't disagree, but I don't think that town meeting changes the strategy on.
Well, it
What-
does, I'm sorry.
No, go
It
ahead.
does change the column of what your budget is.
Yes.
So it will make changes, but
Yeah, yeah.
But I was gonna say if it can be worded such that it's the fiscal year 26 budget that was adopted at the May annual town meeting and go off that, because anything that's restorative at the November special town meeting is still being funded with one-time revenue, and so that's not an ongoing operating budget, and so I think that having what happened at town meeting is ultimately going, if we go for an override, is also going to have to be at the ballot, and so having that number go from, this was what I hear.
so what I was put together for anyone to, just a starting point,
Yeah.
that was is a starting point that we'll talk about later in the meeting, is not a one-time, it's increasing local revenue to the highest level absolutely possible, so it's not necessarily one time, you know, it's not a suggestion to take from free cash.
Yep.
Right.
But
Yes. But yes, I'm being too declarative, I guess, but
no, and I appreciate that, but I think that I don't know, I think a majority of the townspeople that voted at the spring town meeting, the annual town meeting, voted that budget, and oftentimes, right or wrong, there's different populations that are at the spring than are at the fall, and so having what was budgeted at the spring, cause we don't know what's gonna happen at the fall, and so.
So, yeah, I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong, I'm saying there's always so much talk about transparency,
Right.
that's my own, you know, if we say this is the budget, but it was changed
Right,
3 weeks after that's all,
right.
and maybe I'm overthinking it.
Right, and I think that that's fair, and I think that that would be just, you know, an additional column that then as we move through the budget season that for those budgets that are
Could be
addressed,
updated
would be
so that
updated.
when we go to in May, it is the actual total budget.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So I think that the point here is, I know we're hesitant to develop a budget and then develop another budget, but I think it's really, really important that we build the thesis for what we need to justify to the town, right? And that goes towards your comment of, you know, you have to talk about what was cut, what was painful, why was it painful? You have to talk about but that communication, that has to start now. If we don't start it now, we're gonna be in the same boat. Yes, there's a revenue piece that's gonna be missing. We can't talk about what size override any of the budgets that we're gonna consider between now and the end of the year is gonna cause. We have no idea, it could be zero. But we need to start building that thesis so that people go, okay, I get it, these guys went through it with a fine-tooth comb, department heads put in way more time than they normally do in building their budget, right? And here's where we ended up. Okay, I trust the process, right? We can't just kick the can down the road.
Agreed with that, because I think no matter how a department manager looks at what his or her department is, you know, they are looking the budget as they see it, and then they're making their own projections on it. So in other words, basically what you are saying is just what they're thinking.
So could we, if I may, to try to wrap this up a little bit, could we maybe ask the department heads as they make a goal to make it back to the restorative fiscal year 25 service levels, that they create a narrative as to what, to Alex's point, what was kind of lost in this year with the cuts? And then that's a narrative that addresses kind of the cuts that happened and what was lost, whether it was not able to fill sick time or no overtime, or department heads are working 100 hours a week because of staffing or whatever. And then I think as the year goes on, we're gonna see more and more hits on the purchase services side. So we have that. So if they can do a narrative to that piece, and then anything above and beyond the service, the fiscal year service number would go through this budget increase form. So that way we kind of capture both, that there's narrative as to why it was and hopefully it's not just a blanket, everything is put back to that there is some thoughtfulness to, okay, we can do this.
Yeah, so in the submission packet section, part of it is the cover page. It says inclusive of a brief overview of your department's operations, summary of any major changes in your request for FY 27 that differ from FY 26, and the total monetary amount your department is requesting outside of the provided guidance. So that might be a good place just to provide a narrative of the impact, the restorative changes for the service levels. Add to that, does that sound agreeable? So that we have that information?
Yeah, I think if they, maybe I'm asking for a little too much, but I think they need to describe the pain they went through.
Yes, that's essentially what we're
Just-
looking at, yeah.
Yeah.
What did what is the amount, that
And
you're
not-
restoring,
right.
what did that cost you and why are you?
Right, and not so much, and I don't know how to say this right, but not so much, well, we had to work 60 hours a week. No, we couldn't plow the roads the way we wanted to. So there was a safety problem there.
Right.
Knowing they had to work extra hours to get that done. But what's the underlying cause of those extra hours? What happened?
And I think it's safe to say that what pain it caused the departments is important, but I think what townspeople will relate more to is how did it affect the town and
Yes.
And what they see day to day.
I mean, how would it affect individuals throughout town?
Okay.
Not to say that we don't care about the departments as well, but they might relate more to the second one.
Alright, so just make sure I have it correct, for the restorative piece, understanding the cause of the cuts and that restorative budget narrative, that we will include as part of the cover page summary. And then the content of the increased form is just anything outside of that restorative FY 25 budget. Does that
That's fine.
sound?
Yeah.
And I would just update on that exceeds the fiscal year 25 service level
Yep.
budget items for that
Yep.
budget increase form, just so it's clear. But I
So-
think that
Are we gonna ask them to put numbers to the narrative of the restorative? Is that gonna be part of it? Cause I mean, and now we're just clarifying.
I think, so that was kind of some of my earlier comment where I think we can, it's just a matter of how is it documented, so the minimum you should do is restore your budgets to FY 25 service levels, what's that number?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got all these extras that you're asking for as a separate total.
Yeah, what I wanna avoid is like, I'm trying to think of how this would go. In the narrative, if they say, I had to work 60 hours instead of 40 for a month.
Right.
So I need a restorative budget of $50,000 to bring it back up for that line item. Well, like any sane person would look at that and say the numbers don't add up, right? Like that's not a comparative. So I think if you leave the numbers out completely, it may not be necessarily a believable story in some situations. So I'm trying to but I don't wanna have like a whole bunch of numbers in a narrative, so I'm trying to think of like the best way to kind of marry the two and keep it summarized, but
Well,
believable.
could it almost even be, and I'm just thinking like staffing on what, like staffing considerations, and that would include like overtime, sick time, all of that. And then also everything else, like purchase services and supplies and everything else, so that it's kind of two separate overarching budget items for each department. And then, like I said, the narrative for, and I'm gonna use the library as an example, for the purchase services piece, maybe like, hey, we ran out of, all of our utilities come out of purchase services and we ran out of our purchase services by whatever. And maybe on the staffing side, they were okay, but they had some attrition and didn't refill because they were concerned about being able to cover sick, people that were out sick or whatever. And so I think maybe doing it as those two at least is a starting point.
What if the number that you guys are thinking about on the November special town meeting don't go? It's gonna change instantly.
Yeah, and we're not, to Alex's point, we're just looking at a starting point, like what the end.
Your starting point is this in November.
No, I think
Not for them to create their budgets.
The budget we passed in May, Darren.
No, but this pamphlet on the back is what we're gonna add, 346,000 we're proposing. And that's the start number. I agree with Don, that's where it's gonna start, guys,
But that will change.
348.
This is, I expect it to change. Their numbers will change once some of that happens, but we want this for them to say, okay, we're gonna start our budget, what do I need? What their actual budget was last year, in my mind, kind of throw that out the window. You tell me what you need first, and then we'll start with the comparative of what did you have last year, what's our differences. Those numbers are gonna change. It's gonna be a moving target and we can update it, and I think we just need to be very clear that this is all for planning purposes. We are trying to get as much information up front as we can to start having those conversations. It's a moving target, things are going to change, and
and I think
we'll update that as we have it.
ideally, if I remember, I think it was a FinCom meeting that kind of, hopefully coming out of November, we will have at least an idea in our head if we're going for an override and what that first digit of an
It's
override
not
might
gonna
be.
be an if,
I'm,
it's not an if.
but I'm,
You gotta, it's not an if.
I agree, but we don't have those numbers yet. And I think my hope would be that we would have an idea of what that first digit of any potential override would be.
This is the town of Rutland, it's not Fantasy Island. We're going to have an override if everybody does what they want, which we're not saying they shouldn't, we are gonna have it's not an if. Get it, you gotta think that through, it's not an if. We're not gonna make it.
But this is just
It's
to
to
help
get us
us
there.
plan and decide
It's a
how much.
plan on how we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
And then we gotta come up with a strategy, how long we're gonna push this override and how big and everything else, but it's not an if.
But we
It's
need
a when.
buy-in,
But
but
we
we
need
need
the
a
buy-in. We
buy-in
need to know
from
why. Yeah.
multiple bodies and individuals that it's not an if and that it's a must.
Well, we need the
we
this
need that-
department
that
heads to
information.
prove to us that it's
Right.
that they and the townspeople were hurt with the cuts that were made, so that selling an override to the town has a chance.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but we are going to have an override if in the finance committee's thoughts, are we going to have an override? There's not an if and when, it's yes. If everything goes, and that's not a problem, we can plan that, but the if shouldn't even be a discussion.
Oh, sorry, Tamika.
Hey, through the chair, I just wanted to kind of ask a question with David and Donnie here. And the finance committee can speak to this. When we used to do the budget, each department had their own spreadsheet and we had a tab on like a master spreadsheet. And we had set columns and they would fill in those columns and that's how they created their budgets. And along with those budget submissions, they had a narrative that went with it, and then those pages are what made up the budget book. And that process was changed very much last year, and so I just wanna make sure that the department heads know which way they're going this year as far as how to present their budget, and it sounds like the narrative you're describing fits with basically what they used to do. So I'm wondering if we could just add a column onto that spreadsheet that they used to fill out that is like, this is my FY 25 restorative, this is my FY 27 all inclusive, and then that budget increase request form is for everything over and above. That was just my initial thought. And then my only other thought is, I think it would be really beneficial to our argument if we're more transparent about what comprises our purchased services. Because I don't think a lot of residents realize that encompassed in that is things like fuel and our electricity, our supplies. And so maybe if we're more transparent about the costs that we have that are fixed within those line items, because those were the ones that took the biggest cuts this year, and I think that's where we're struggling the most to pay those bills.
Yeah,
That's just my thought.
I agree. I think we can have some of those conversations. For the spreadsheets, I prefer simpler, but I'm going to defer to the finance director to work with the town administrator, and if you have a meeting tomorrow, get the input of the department heads
Yeah,
on
I don't
what
think I'm
seems
gonna
to
go
be-
over all of this tomorrow,
Yeah,
cause I think it's
whatever
gonna be
makes sense.
premature. I think that, we can go over the sense of what you're looking for,
Yep.
but not introduce that as the memo at this point until we incorporate and get a handle on, specifically the language
sure,
we're gonna
yes,
use in
I
that
agree.
and the forms or the way we wanna set up the forms. so that
Yeah,
they
an
work
Excel
to-
spreadsheet.
But the
For what we
process and
object.
the spreadsheet and
Yeah.
how they input all that information, work with Donna and
Budget
our-
this year that
It's
we're
very-
operating in.
It's very different than what we used to do though, cause we used to have like a whole Excel spreadsheet and there were tabs for every department. Everybody's was uniform so that everybody's didn't look different, that fires didn't look different. I don't know, did you guys
It
feel
was
it
one
looked the
big
same?
Like
Excel workbook
standardizing
with many
the
different
process.
worksheets for each department, so it summed up into one lump sum at the top. It was very nice, comprehensive, not 180 pages of fluff, but it was a comprehensive budget document. If you need it, I have old ones.
So was last year's. I'm confused as to why you think it wasn't done that way, but that doesn't.
All we got was 180 pages of fluff.
Maybe you didn't
we
see the
didn't
Excel
see-
file,
we
but
didn't see the Excel
That has
file.
nothing to do with it.
No, I'm saying, we
Yeah,
didn't get the
but
Excel file.
It was created that way
Okay.
as well.
We were told as a finance committee when asked that worksheet doesn't exist, this is what exists.
Okay.
That's what we were told. So I'm just going after what we were told, Donna. We all knew that something had to be done, but we were told that didn't exist anymore. What we were told.
It was all PDFs, which you
That
can do nothing
received,
with.
That you
Yes.
received,
Yeah.
Alright, so we'll take the finance committee feedback that they would like to have an Excel spreadsheet to be able to make copies of, manipulate, see different scenarios.
We'd like to help, we're
Yes.
extending out the olive branch.
So we'll have David work with Donna and get input from the department heads on that process. But going back to the guidance memo, there's a couple of edits. We'll emphasize the service levels utilized for right now, the approved FY 26 at annual town meeting amounts. We'll add the narrative piece for the cover page specific to the impact of the cuts and for the restorative budget request. Anything else? The update on the form for the service levels. Are there any other?
Is we just talking memo, or do you wanna talk about the schedule as well right now?
Why don't we, can we do just the memo?
Yep, that's fine, okay. Then I have nothing else for the memo, I'm good.
Okay, so if nothing else, any other comment from the finance committee?
I don't, you guys?
I would like to suggest that in every budget season, when departments are working on things, it's the time to look at their purchase services and their supplies. And even as a town, does it make sense to, have a contract with WB Mason or Staples and have, I don't think you're gonna get as good prices as somebody that's got, 11,000 employees, but maybe somebody we can do a bit better pricing. But we also learned at our last finance committee meeting that the town clerk is using a company to do, and I'm just using an example, using a company to do the annual census, which costs more than doing it in-house. So what is that cost? And again, the cost of doing both, and is it time that they don't have? Is it so minuscule? So those are things that I think every budget season, those are the pieces that we have no control over, but do we have control over who we're using?
I definitely don't disagree. I'm all for evaluating and seeing where we can create efficiencies. I think that's something for a permanent town administrator to take a look at and evaluate just operations in general. Where can we consolidate? Where can we create efficiencies?
But I mean,
things like
you know,
that.
specific town departments that have made a choice to use whatever for a purchase service.
I don't disagree.
That's something that they should be looking at every, periodically.
Can we break some of the purchase service out into oil and electric and
And
things? We've
that's
tried to do
definitely,
that.
we've gotta do that.
Separate line items.
It would be great, but then when you look at historical, it's gonna look.
But we gotta, somewhere or another, Alex, we gotta get back
Got
to
it, 'cause
where we're
those-
telling everybody
Yeah,
what
I
we're
had the
doing.
same thought, and
I don't know how we do it, but we gotta keep that in mind,
Yeah.
David and Donna, when we get to that point, maybe we gotta break that out into
Or
another.
sub-accounts that roll into.
I think ultimately, the long term, one of our select board goals a couple years ago was to kind of create a facilities group under DPW that I think a lot of that would just, then all of utilities would be lumped under that because that's taking care of
I
all
think
the
they split it off,
facilities.
like, doesn't the fire department pay their own now or something?
Fire,
It's-
different buildings
But
handle
we
things
should just see
differently.
who's paying in that purchase services, if we could get a breakout, it would help us all, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it helps to have it broken out into departments, because as a townsperson, you would wanna know, like, the library costs us X dollars, I'm using that as cause we're in the library. But I think that's important to know, and I've actually made the comment in the past about health insurance, cause we lump our health insurance into one total department. So that is an example where we don't do that, which is kinda contradictory to how we do purchase services and utilities and things like that, so it is kinda, and everyone does things differently, so it's not a knock, it's just, it's kinda confusing, to do that.
Electricity is all under DPW right now. All the town buildings, electricity is $50,000.
No, I don't think the fire department's
Fire
separate.
department is separate.
Fire department separate,
Public-
library separate.
Well, library has
Separate.
its purchase services for library.
And public safety is separate also because they're 24/7, so there's
If we, at least we say it on there
Yeah,
somewhere, that it's,
right.
under purchase services, there's another breakdown
Just a
of.
note as to like what is
Well, it
inclusive.
used to, that's how we used to get the budgets, it used to say this includes this and this and this. When we had meetings with department heads that lasted more than 3.5 seconds. And we used to get that kind of detail, and we didn't get that detail in last year's budget.
It sounds to me that the selectmen want a spirit of cooperation, so I think they're gonna change it this year, so I'm excited.
No, I'm just saying, we used to get that.
Oh, yes, and I think we're gonna go back there.
So-
More transparency.
Just to clarify one thing, if, I'm not against looking at who we use, but I'm assuming that the majority of vendors we use is from state contracts in state approved purchasing groups, I'm guessing? No? Okay, that's concerning, but,
Maybe not.
okay,
Alright, so we'll keep that
that's
as
a.
a
point of-
item for review.
Yeah.
Alright, if there's no other discussion, I will entertain a motion to adopt the FY 2027 budget guidance memo and budget increase request form with discussed amendments.
So moved. That wasn't a question, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Alright, Alex,
Oh, and I?
Second I.
And then I,
That's an aye.
Ledger I. Thank you. I'm very appreciative of that. To go into the FY 27 budget schedule. Were there any?
Yeah, so I mean, this is obviously a draft, right? There's no, you know,
Correct.
it's a draft, I get it, but I think, there's been a couple points that were brought up tonight that I think are important that we kind of recognize and maybe look at adjusting, due to some of the comments, and also one thing to add. I think one of the most important things, and this isn't really a date, but, we constantly, are waiting for the school budget. I think we need to have a hard date in here to recognize when we're requesting the school to have us a draft budget by. We know it's not gonna be final, but getting something to be able to plug into our budget for planning purposes is extremely important. We've said this numerous times, we've talked about it at this committee like a month or so ago. So I think just keeping that as a point in this schedule, I think is just important to make sure that we're on top of that. We'll request it at a certain date and ask for it by a certain date. So if we could add that as a piece to this, I know it's a really small piece, but I do think just based off of the percentage of our budget, it's very important. And because it's always been a point of contention.
Do you have a timeframe?
I mean, if we're asking
we
for
can
a
ask?
draft, so what I would suggest is that by the time we're presented the budget by, to the select board and the finance committee, we should have a draft budget by then that's been included in that budget.
January 14th?
Well, there's a second part of this conversation. I think if January 14th, I think Darren kind of mentioned this, that's probably too late. If we look at when we're requesting all of the submissions to be back to the town administrator is currently November 3rd. Compiling that data into one, especially if we have a Excel workbook that's compiling all that data into, having I'm not gonna do math right now, but 2.5 month roughly time lapse between those two dates is not, it just doesn't make sense. I think that pushing the January 14th way up, I get that there's pieces that are gonna happen in the capital plan, but I think that we can do that at the same time. So, I mean, the presentation of 5-year financial analysis and estimated 27 revenues, it shouldn't take that much longer after that, especially if we have a file that's already doing the compiling to get those, to get something finalized for a draft P&L. So, I mean, I don't know the exact date, but I can't imagine the end of November is unreasonable for that scenario.
I was just saying,
The same,
do you wanna move it up 4 weeks?
make it the same, November 3rd.
Well, so
Yeah.
the revenues are on here are November 10th, so I just wanna give
Time.
respect to that, to have the revenue included in
I
it.
think Ludwig meant asking the schools for
Oh, yeah.
their deadline
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah,
That's fine, yeah, we
that's
can
what
ask
he
the
was
schools for the same deadline. I'm more talking about when,
We can ask.
the proposed budget, the January 14th deadline right now, should be more like the end of November, in my opinion.
well, yeah, but the school should have their stuff in when the rest of our,
Yeah,
you know.
I don't disagree, yeah, and
I think
it's a
memo-
draft budget, cause we asked them this
Draft
last
budget,
year.
draft budget.
I think a memo to both Bay Path and Wachusett saying that we're requesting draft from all of our department heads by this date, and I don't have a lot of confidence that either school will be willing participants, but maybe they'll surprise us.
No,
given
we
that they get-
requested.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I'm saying.
They're
is
not
that we-
necessarily gonna have something to give us.
But we
will.
requested just to say that that this is our expectation of our department heads as a town, and we understand that as draft, and I personally would rather they aim high than aim low. I don't know how FinCom
Just give
feels
us
about
your
that, I don't know how
best
the rest of the board.
Well, last year when we asked them about this, they said that they could get us a draft budget. They said, you're not concerned with it having incorrect insurance numbers, and it was the only thing they said. And it's, put a conservative insurance estimate in there knowing it's gonna change. That's literally the only number that's, I mean, there's a couple other things that are of course gonna change, but they have an idea of what there's no reason they can't get it to us earlier, and they said that last year.
And even Austin's analysis last year with the final budget, his fall analysis to the final was within a few,
Yeah, but he was
10
using, I mean,
A few
like,
grand,
with all
but-
due respect, that was a guess. I mean, that was an estimate.
Right, no,
And-
but
and
that's what I'm saying, we have
yeah.
numbers, historical numbers that we can work off of that.
Right, but we should be getting something from them. There's no reason we can't.
So is the board amenable to drafting a memo to both Wachusett and Bay Path requesting a draft budget? We understand it's very draft, but just for
Conservative draft
budget
budget.
planning purposes, please request that they provide one by November 3rd.
Yep.
For our,
Does a town administrator have a meeting with the other town administrators in the surrounding towns are members of the district that he might be able to impress that, or at least bring up our point, so we're all on the same page? Cause I know we've had that problem before, some of the towns.
I haven't seen it, like a town administrators group
Okay.
yet, so I don't know if that exists.
There was one, there definitely was one.
Yeah, there generally is, I just haven't been,
David, that's the one that's been canceled the last 2 times.
oh, that's when I went to the,
That
okay.
explains that.
Yep, they've been canceled the last 2 months.
Tamika, do you want a motion for the memo?
I would love that.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to draft a memo to Wachusett and Bay Path requesting a draft budget for November 3rd.
So moved.
Second, can we just add in line with our department
Yes.
requests that
Yep.
it's following that it's not just them, we're asking all of our departments to do that.
Through the chair.
Sure.
I think we should include the school committee too. Not just send it to the superintendent or whatever. Cause they're the ones who represent us at Wachusett. That they should push to get this thing out by November 3rd
Send it
as well.
to the entire school committee or just our personal representatives?
Personal representative.
We can CC them on the memo?
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to include them, that's fine.
Same with my second.
Alright, motion and a second. Any other discussion on the memo? Alright, Alex,
ODOT?
Second, aye?
Whitman, I.
That's an I.
ledger I.
And then the other one was bringing the January 14th date up, and again, I'm amenable to whatever that date is, I just think that, and Darren even mentioned this, that waiting until January 14th for the finance committee to get a draft budget is too late. So whatever we can move that up to, I think, you know, maybe, it doesn't need to be decided tonight, obviously, but maybe David and Donna could figure out what's reasonable with the November 3rd expectation and get back to us. And then I think that could move up some of the budget hearings for department review as well and get us in a better place sooner to have more things to go off of, just my opinion.
Like to see it from the.
You know, David contracted now through November 30th, we're expecting a new one coming in, a new town administrator is not gonna be able to jump in instantly on this, so I think probably the December 8th, being that's a Monday, would probably be the better date. I look at the January 14th and I kinda think that would be very difficult for, assuming that we have a brand new town administrator by then, that would be very difficult for that person to
If
jump in.
he's contracted through the November 30th, we should go a little bit sooner than that. Before that.
Well, so I mean, I just, so to clarify, if we have one budget document that lives in Excel and the department heads are filling that out specifically, they're filling that out themselves and that rolls up into one sheet, then the compiling of what's needed for November 3rd is technically done.
So, you know, I'm saying that we could roll it.
But usually you have the TA recommendation after that, so I think that that's giving time for that, but I agree that this, we would get it on like the 14th, meet on the 15th, cause I think that's the Thursday, and we'd be meeting with departments then 2 weeks later, and we haven't even met.
So I mean, this would, I mean,
So-
knowing that we may not have a TA at that point, this
So-
would be a department requested budget, we're just
Yeah.
titling it something different.
And we could start recommending,
Well, is it
For TA
reasonable
anyway.
to have the TA give us something the week before the 30th is Thanksgiving? How about the week of the 17th to the 21st? Can he,
well, it's town
That's
meeting.
special town meeting.
well, he can still help us get this budget, get what we need.
I think to Alex's point, it's just, we'll get what the departments give us.
It's it's not a TA, it's just at this point, it's a budget request from the departments, and that at least gives us something to go forward on, because a new TA might look at it differently than David will.
I just
It's
wanna
an
make sure that
expenditures,
somebody
right?
gets it to us.
No
Right,
revenue
that's
side
yeah,
yet.
exactly.
Well, we'll have revenue, so right now the schedule has revenues as of November 10th, and of course, those are estimated, right, so like those, but yes, we'll, it'll,
I'm just trying to put it in stone that we get it before we're in this interim. I don't know if we're gonna keep David past the 30th or whatever.
If I may, Donna, I think that that's kind of what you were alluding to, right? Is it makes more sense to do it earlier, either while David's still here or right after David's contract ends.
'Cause I-
And I say the contract ends just because we don't know what
Right.
is happening there. But so I think you're in agreement of moving it into that end of November, beginning of December timeframe
Yes.
also.
Which
So-
is not involving Thanksgiving, that's all, we get that week.
Right,
But, cause over the last 6 months or a year, we've had a lot of drift on dates. So I'm trying to
Well, and frankly,
hammer in a big nail to make it
if-
happen.
the way it's set up right now, if David leaves as of November 30th and we don't have a town administrator in place, it falls on this board to then present that budget. So I mean, timing is like, whoever's in the TAC at the time, to everyone's point, this is a department budget, and it'll be worked on at that point by the TA if they're here, and then the select board and the finance committee in conjunction. So I don't think necessarily the timing of a TA or really matters to me, or it matters. I think the only thing is, whether or not, there's a kind of automated creation of this budget, or if there's stuff that has to happen in the back end that we need to give, Donna or anyone time to actually do manually. I mean, I'm going on an assumption that this is kind of an automated process, and if it's, we just wanna make sure, I wanna make sure that before we put a date of like, November 3rd, that there's reasonable expectation that you have enough time to do something.
This is a business, town of Rutland, and I'm afraid that without a relatively hard date, things drift, and I don't want that to happen this year. So that's, however you guys wanna ensure it, I don't wanna let it keep on sliding.
So we'll have the department's budgets by November 3rd, so it's a matter of plugging in the revenues and other, right? So
Yeah, and I mean,
we-
technically speaking, we wouldn't need the revenues to start reviewing expenses, right? I mean, we could start looking at it. It's good to have, but I don't know that it necessarily
So do we
creates
just,
a need.
do we just wanna say, I mean, and this is just for it to be submitted, it's not corresponding to a specific meeting day, so
Correct.
do we wanna just say December 1st, it's Monday?
It's fine, it's fine.
That gives us an additional 6 weeks. Is that amenable to?
so that would be an extra.
Can you just clarify what is December 1st?
The proposed budget submitted to the select board and the finance committee.
So currently it's
So
January 14th.
currently January 14th, bump that to December
Oh, okay.
1st.
Could we just move that date while we have a contracted town administrator, please?
December 1st is a Monday, I will make sure that you get it, that's just,
No, I'm just,
I mean,
but I don't want it all to fall on you, we have a
but
town
December
administrator.
1st is a Monday, I think it makes sense, let's not bring it up before the week.
It's okay.
I personally don't think we want one automated file where everyone fills in. I think that's where you take a risk of things getting changed and no one knowing that they get changed. So I think that the department heads, we send them forms like we did last year. They send it back to one person and then it's entered on the master file. Then the master file can be sent in Excel to finance it. But I don't want to be responsible for a file that everyone has access to. And I certainly don't have time to set up a file that would have only the fire chief can change the fire department, I'm not being provided enough time to put together a file like that. If you're wanting these to go out in this time frame. So I think there's nothing wrong with sending blank forms on the columns that you want filled out to the department heads like we've done. And then them send it back to me or the department head, or the TA, and that be compiled, but I don't think 4 weeks is necessary to compile that. I think, like you said, that can be compiled very quickly.
So December 1st was thrown out well, November 14th was the town meeting, right? So
The 20th.
okay.
The
And then-
first is fine, if that's what
The
you
reason,
guys.
if I may, I think the first is better, is because of town meeting, and then I have to start the process of the recap and all, cause I can't finalize that until after the town meeting, so.
So just to clarify, December 1st gives you enough time to compile with these expectations?
I think December 1st works, I think a little earlier might feel a little pressure.
Alright, so we'll do that, and then do we want to look at bumping up the budget hearing meetings?
Yeah, so
place sooner?
I think 2 questions on that, and with the finance committee, how many days do we think is necessary for that? And then obviously the dates as well. I mean, I know last year we had like 2 days, right? That's obviously, I think the sentiment is that's not enough. Currently, they're scheduled, and again, I know this is a draft, but we have 7 days on here?
So I think the thinking of this is those meetings that we had last year were really long. And I
Yeah.
don't think they afforded time to certain departments
Sure.
to come in. Some departments are gonna take 15 minutes, others might take 2 hours. So I think the thinking here is limit it to, you know, 2 departments, shorter meetings that we can have a little bit more of the back and forth, and especially in this year where we are really trying to have that transparency, really understand what we're trying to budget for here. Just separating that out and offering it to the departments to sign up for a specific time. In my opinion, we didn't even get all the departments this last budget season. We didn't talk about the revolving accounts, so that's on here. So I wanna make sure that in my mind, even if it's a 15-minute conversation, I think we need to talk to every single department.
And also,
This year.
spread out like this. It gives us and the finance committee a chance to really review their department budget and understand what questions we need to ask. I felt some of my questions didn't have time to even get asked last year,
And
so.
And I recognize it is a lot, but so if we can have the departments sign up, if we can make it available what that schedule is, so again, if time constraints, there's conflicts, people can look and see which departments are on what days, they can watch recordings, they can, you know, just to be able to help with that. But I don't disagree with moving up the timeline for those if we wanna look at that.
I think some of the conversation, if I may,
Mhm.
some of the conversation previously was that I think historically we kind of have done February through March, the February with a little bit of March for the department head reviews, but if we are aiming for an earlier set, knowing that we're not going to have finalized revenue even from the governor's draft budget, or the governor's budget, then I think we should move them forward to hear from the department heads so that going into as we start adding revenue in and everything, we see where we are. And we, by that point, I would say by kind of February, we are should be starting to be all in for the advocacy for an override.
Yeah, so I mean, they're submitting their budgets by November 3rd. There's no reason we can't start that soon after that. I mean, maybe we wait until the December 1st that we receive it, but honestly, do we need to wait for that long? Because
But that's why we're looking for it, is so it's giving us a starting point to see what
Right.
some of these initial numbers are, so we,
So I mean, I think we started soon after the December 1st, proposed budget submitted to Select Board and Finance Committee. And we could even spread it out, a few in December and a few in January to spread that out, decently. Maybe even a little bit of early February to give us a little bit of how much of those we're doing that quickly, I don't know. That's-
Well, and especially depending on what other agenda items or whether
holidays. So, yeah, okay, so if the board's amenable, obviously, we'll go through and make some adjustments. We can take a look at the dates and make some changes to bring back to the board for the budget hearing.
Yeah, cause I mean, if we get done with that by the end of February, that still only gives us 2 months. Roughly. I mean, that's still not even a lot of time.
Right.
In my mind, in my opinion, we'd almost want to start that process earlier. I don't know what makes sense, I mean, maybe Finance Committee, if you guys have an idea of what really time is needed to start that conversation, start that process of setting up meetings with I mean, is 3 months, 2 to 3 months, is that enough? I'm not even sure, I think it is, I don't know what you guys feel like.
Anybody got any comment? Go ahead.
I think time-wise it's enough. The question I have is, what's the best method for the outreach? Just having a budget hearing isn't maybe the best way to do it. I don't know that I have, you know, I don't think mailers are necessarily, you know, like, it's
think we
like,
legally
how
can
do
do
you,
mailers,
how do
but-
you get to, get the word out in an effective manner? I think that's something worth thinking through.
So I guess the question would be is, when do you all feel you will feel comfortable putting forth an override? Cause it's you guys that have to put forth an override, cause that's gonna make the big difference.
I was ready last year, so sorry guys.
Yeah, but we need to have it agreed upon
I know,
and you know,
Voted
tapped
on.
into stone,
right.
so that we're not changing it last minute like happened.
Well, and that's why I was thinking, like, if we have everything, if we have a December 1st of deadline of the proposed budgets being distributed to select board and FinCom, then pushing the budget hearings into December and January, so that if we have any stragglers into February, we do, but really by end of January, beginning of February, we have we know, I mean,
You know what to do.
we know, right, because I think for me personally, February at the latest
I agree.
is,
Alright, so we'll see if we can bump those up, the
does that
hearings.
seem reasonable? And then I think a few years ago, when the override was successful and FinCom hosted a number of the budget information sessions and everything, I think that that's one avenue, I don't think that that's the only avenue, but I do think having those were beneficial,
And those should be hosted by both of us, I would
Right.
think. I mean, I don't
No,
think
I wasn't
it's-
putting the onus
Okay,
on them,
alright, yeah.
I was.
But that's why we need the budget sooner than later, cause
Right.
that's what you have to be able to show.
Yeah.
Cause at that point, you have to be able to show, this is why we need an override, or this is what you're gonna lose.
Yep.
You have to put out both.
Alright, so we'll see if we can amend this to try and shoot to have that information by the end of January. Is there anything outside of the budget hearings?
Can we add the annual, the election day, which is it the Monday after? Just,
Should be.
that kind of closes this whole thing.
The town election?
For
And an
scheduling,
override would be on it if
Yeah.
we're doing that, so it would be part of.
just an afterthought on scheduling the budget meetings. If that's the case, that we wanna try to, we might have stragglers in February, as Leah mentioned. If that's the case, we'd wanna try to prioritize the larger, more impactful ones right away, so that, cause they're gonna have the biggest swings as far as budgetary, so I think that getting those done first is probably the most important.
If I may, Jen, we can also reach out to Anita, cause we're gonna need to know the deadline to get that printed on the ballot.
Right.
And so the board will have to decide a number. We'll wanna know what that
Yeah,
deadline
we
is
can
too,
add
so
that
I
in
can
as
ask
well.
Anita.
That would be great, yeah.
Yep.
She needs it by April 6th.
I was gonna say, it's usually the end.
It's on here, it's April 6th, override,
Oh,
debt
yeah.
exclusion, ballot deadline, it's April 6th.
Oh, see, there we
Gotta
go.
put that
It was
in.
on the list. I was like, you already did that.
I do have a question on the November 10th for the presentation of the 5-year financial analysis and the estimated revenues. So how could a presentation of a 5-year be put together? I mean, that's only a week after the November 3rd when we're receiving. That's pretty tight for, I mean, don't we want that 5-year to include what the department heads are requesting for restorative? So I think that date is
A little quick.
I think
It should almost go with December 8th with the
That's what I was-
CIPC.
thinking.
I mean, so I would actually think that like it needs to be later than that, because your priority is going to be getting the compile done by December 1st of the current year budget, and then creating a 5-year off of that. I mean, you need that to create a 5-year. So, I mean, and really this should probably be 3-year. But I would think that happens after December 1st, and if you're bogged down with getting the December 1st deadline met, I know that you said that seems reasonable, but who knows what could happen between now and then, so from December 1st to December 8th may not be enough time.
I'm fine with that too, I just didn't think November 10th was
Yeah.
wise.
I also, sorry, I just had this thought, I wonder if adding that into kind of our budget hearing presentation might be beneficial as like finance director, that's part of, it's not your specific budget item, but it's a part of the overview, because that could inform a dollar amount that we're looking for an override.
Correct.
And so that's where I think it would, and that would give you a little bit more, as finance director, a little bit more leeway and maybe a little bit more confidence in the estimated revenues. Granted, it's still early for that, but maybe a little bit more confidence. You'll have the recap certification and everything done. And
And I would at least have 6 months of current revenue, so yes, I do agree with your thoughts.
so maybe kind of pushing that into January timeframe and spending maybe a night with finance director as the budget hearing process, and that's inclusive there, maybe. I don't know
Part
how
of
the
that
board,
needs
if
to
FinCom
include the
feels about that.
CIPC during the same, because it's 5-year and CIPC recommendations on that capital plan.
So are we looking to combine those two?
Why are we combining those two?
I'm just trying to understand what we're being.
Some of the capital plan is driven by what the CIPC is recommending and what's on their, I mean, Harry can speak to why it would
No, you're right.
be that way. But they're not two silos, they're a dovetail.
That's, their report is gonna depend on how efficient the departments are in getting their capital requests in. Cause that process, on average, should take about 2 months in order to go through the department questions, do the analysis, do the questions, do the report, and give it to them. So, they only meet once a month.
They might have to meet more than that during the budget
But what I'm
season.
saying is, just to give you that timeline, that if they need that, they're gonna have to, but it's all dependent. Normally, I will tell you, in my years that I've been there, normally we see stuff come into us in October, not September. So that's why I said things have to be pushed, whether it's the board, finance committee, whether it's the town administrator, we gotta push the CIPC to get that stuff in, which means all the departments have to get their requests into them to do it. And that's where it comes in, is the departments getting us the information.
So, and maybe this is just my ignorance of town accounting, but what does the capital budget have to do with the operating budget?
No, we're talking about the budget, how it works into the budget. If we're gonna do a budget, huh?
The overall budget?
Yeah, if we're gonna do
Capital
the overall budget,
expenditures in the budget.
we need to know what those expenditures are gonna be for the recommendations, not the operating budget, other than if money is allocated other than from borrowing or from capital budget or something, so we won't know that until that report is done.
So you're just talking about for revenue purposes, we would need to know.
So I think, I don't have in front of me the CIPC bylaw, but I think there's two separate things that we're looking at, and I think I may have accidentally confused us, so I apologize. So I was looking at the original on our budget development schedule, the November 10th, 2025, which is a Monday, presentation of 5-year financial analysis, finance director with including estimated fiscal year 27 revenues. That's kind of the 5-year municipal general operating budget analysis. I was suggesting that get moved to kind of a January timeframe as a department head budget hearing. Because then that would inform potentially the override number, or could help inform the override number. For the capital plan, we have we send out the request this week or next week for the budget including capital items. And then that's submitted by November 3rd to the town administrator. And then the existing 5-year capital plan is submitted to the town administrator and sent to CIPC for scoring. And then the proposal is that the December 8th CIPC review and written recommendations as to the funding and scoring would be sent to the board and FinCom. And that generally does not hit the general fund. That's usually free cash or other
Stabilization,
funding,
right?
borrowing or.
Stabilization.
So are we saying leave that 5-year capital plan review and recommendations for December 8th?
I'm not sure the CIPC bylaw, I think that there are some things in the CIPC bylaw that state when we're supposed to receive,
Okay.
sorry.
But for the presentation of the 5-year analysis and the estimated revenues,
I was
we're
suggesting.
looking to move early January.
That's what I was, sometime in January during a budget hearing, is that,
If I could, how about if you just make that the first budget hearing meeting? You could have maybe something after that, but have that the first one, so that gives kind of an overview of the whole,
Well, we're gonna want the
the starting
estimated,
point, the launching point.
yeah, we're gonna want the estimated 27 revenues in November to compare to expenses and see where we're at. But the 5-year or 3-year financial analysis would be done later, I would think.
So the revenue on November 10th is gonna be a guess,
Right.
complete guess, so I don't know that it will matter. At least a January date, you will have 6 months of this current fiscal year. A November 10th date, I'm gonna have 3 months of the current year.
There's no date.
But I mean, having a draft
The
is,
state
I mean, having
capital
something
plan
in there
document.
I was
to
gonna say,
compare it
let's
to.
do
I mean, I doubt it's gonna go down, right? So it's somewhere to start.
Well, we usually
So,
follow that.
Do you wanna
Try-
keep
Usually we get.
November
that
10th for
report
estimated
in February
FY27
before
revenues,
we
just to
start.
have, again, a
Yeah,
starting
so
point
it's quite literally
number?
saying estimated. I think
So
that's
if we want
estimated
to
revenues is a
early,
very fair way of
because
saying
a
that,
lot
and
of stuff-
that's
Okay.
I think unless done is that
And
not
we need to
like
make
that's
sure
fine.
that
It's
we're
just
gonna request
on the
December
on the knowledge it's gonna be
I just-
estimated.
Stuff to
I
us
just-
by say October.
Okay, so we can
October 5th or
keep
beginning of
November
October.
10th and aside from a meeting date, just as a, let's get some of this information for knowledge, and then the presentation of the 5-year analysis, and then the updated estimated revenues early January. Is that?
Yes.
I was just gonna add, the CIPC has a meeting scheduled for this Thursday evening, so if the board has any guidance coming out of tonight as to how you would like them to plan their upcoming season, we can relay that to them so they could have a discussion about it on Thursday night.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's any issue with having a recommendation by December 8th for CAPC. I think that's
Keep that.
reasonable.
For
Unless
CIPC?
finance,
Yeah,
unless finance.
Especially because I think the thinking was, given our financial constraints, there's probably not gonna be a lot of updates to that capital plan unless there's, emergent things that have changed in the last fiscal year.
Well, and I think that maybe the direction is to make sure that we're looking at all safety concerns and that be a part of an override discussion, from a capital spend perspective.
well, okay. If I can try to clarify some here. On September 8th, we're gonna request that the capital items are sent for inclusion in the 5-year capital plan. We're gonna request it. And then we're going down to November 3rd, when the existing 5-year capital plan submitted to TA and sent to capital CIPC for scoring. So if CIPC doesn't get this stuff until November 3rd, that's gonna be a problem. So that has to get to them, to me, by October 1st or 15th at the very latest, so they can do their work.
So are you looking,
I need the departments to get their information, not to the TA on November 3rd for scoring, but to the TA before that, say even October 15th. So now if that's where it's going, they get it to the CIPC so they can do their work.
It's gonna change.
Because otherwise, if you get November 3rd, they probably won't be able to meet until November 15th. And November 10th, you're gonna have their presentation, the 5-year financial analysis.
so do we move that 5-year capital plan submitted to TA and sent to CIPC for scoring to the October 6th date? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think, well, are the departments gonna be able to get their recommendations for capital? And there's only a few departments that send it in. I mean, we don't get a lot of requests from many, many departments, so. committee. So if we could get that, say by October 6th, October 15th, if they can have it to the TA, then he can turn that around right away and get it to them.
We might need to anyways, because if we don't, we obviously have some chunky updates to make to this, we're not gonna approve this tonight. So I think we might need to bump that September 8th date out anyways. Is there any?
Well, couldn't we just ask that the September 8th date be held with return? I mean, I think the chunky updates are kind of post mid-November,
Yep.
so I think we could essentially approve the November 8th, October 6th, if that's happening, and November 3rd at minimum.
Okay.
So that means the budget requests go out on Monday, next Monday, and then we're asking for all the information back by November 3rd. I think it's chunky to ask departments to provide a capital plan in advance of their operating plan, which, to Harry's point, if we wanna keep the December 8th for the CIPC review, they would like more than a month time, because if they need more than one meeting to review information.
Sure.
So I wonder if that December 8th time should be moved to either later in December or again, the beginning of January, and maybe and I don't know if it's too confusing for our brain power to include it in the same meeting that we would have the 5-year general fund analysis also.
We could have that be the
That would be
first
essentially the
depart-
meeting,
yeah.
right? Essentially, that's like the department head
Yep.
meeting. But I don't know if that's too chunky and too much brain power to keep separate, that this is 5-year general municipal government operating analysis, and this is 5-year capital. You know what I mean?
I can parse it out. I mean, to have those, to me, it makes sense to have those two take place together, just
And that gives CIPC
to
at least
inform the
another
rest.
month
Yeah.
to hold more meetings.
Because what happens sometimes is we'll schedule a meeting and say we'll try to schedule with DPW to come in and explain their equipment stuff, but they can't do it because they're not available until the next meeting. And that pushes it back to where if they can't do it, we try to get the fire department, but if they can't come in, then we try Counsel on Aging.
Right.
So
Okay, so
we just need that time.
So we are looking at combining the 5-year analysis and the capital plan review as essentially the first department budget
Yeah.
hearing to inform the rest of the.
Donna,
Does
do
that-
you think that makes sense?
Yes.
And I think then
Okay.
CIPC, I think the directive to CIPC would just be similar to FinCom, like these next few months, you may need to meet more than once a month to get these meetings in. They don't meet every month all the time anyway, so I think it's the nature of that committee, similar to the nature of FinCom.
So what date are we changing to submission to the TA for the capital plan?
I think that everything stays the same
Yep.
up through November 3rd.
Agreed. It's just the current one that's for November 10th and then December 8th, we're going to combine those into an early
Like the first,
like the first budget hearing in January.
So you still want them, so we're still gonna request it on September 8th, and they're still gonna submit to the TA for November 3rd?
yes.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
still on November 3rd or right after, the 5-year capital plan would be transmitted to CIPC for their scoring so that they can begin their work. And everything is transmitted to Donna as finance director for the analysis, to begin the compilation and analysis and everything.
Yep.
Right?
We'll mock it up and bring back the updates.
But I think, I mean, I would feel comfortable tonight essentially approving the September 8th if we're keeping October 6th and then November 3rd
Through November
as
3rd.
as presented here. And
Okay.
then the 10th and 18th would be combined into an early January meeting.
Okay.
Can someone explain what the purpose of October 6th is?
It's listed here as first annual budget summit, established fiscal year 27 goals.
I think it's something
So
we
explain to me what that means.
open for discussion. I think the intent is it's on a regularly scheduled meeting. It's just to kind of establish what do we wanna see for the upcoming budget season. Is there anything in general goals that we want to set? We have some that we've kind of adopted as part of the guidance memo for.
I was gonna say, at
Guidance,
that
so
point, it's
is
already
there-
too late.
Is there anything else?
I was
So-
gonna say, any other goals should be included in the guidance menu.
Yeah.
Memo that's going out, so that we're not, that's why I was asking, cause I'm like, the
Yeah.
guidance memo was kind of
I'm not
comprehensive.
sure, Jen, if I may, I don't wanna, I'm not sure if this would be an opportunity to have discussion as to the will of the board, and I don't know if it's joint with FinCom or not, but to look at restoring the stabilization accounts that were utilized this past year, if we're going to inclusive of an override, if there's that conversation. I don't know what it is, but I feel like the department head information is kind of a lot of his goals. I'm not sure if this is kind of above and beyond, like,
I mean, it would make sense if that's something that we want to do as part of the restorative budget, is make sure that we're contributing what per our policies says we should for our stabilization funds and anything else. I think that would be an opportunity for us to review that and make note of that as part of the budget.
That's not an operating budget thing.
No, but
no, but it's also, it's not necessarily an operating budget, but it's can be informative of any override discussion, number discussion, or utilization of free cash going into the fall town meeting. Just as far as,
So it's probably not, to me, it doesn't sound to me like it's a budget summit, it's more of a 27 goals.
we can.
Well, it's related to the budget, just because it's not the operating budget, doesn't mean it's not relevant to the budget. Am I missing something?
Yeah.
Jen, if
Usually those numbers, our stabilization isn't given out of the general fund, it's usually free cash that we apply there.
if the board's
not
gonna talk about
That's not
use
budget.
of free cash at that meeting,
Yes.
I would recommend having guidance before the warrant closes, so that you don't have article requests for free cash and then in October decide that you don't necessarily want them to use free cash, or that you're setting a cap on it. I just worry that the timing of that would not.
Are you talking about for special town meeting?
Oh, well, I don't know if that's what Leah was referring to, free cash for special town meeting or just free cash in general.
No, I think that was more just for the FY 27 budget. Are we going to allocate X amount to our stabilization funds per our financial policies? Or is that something where financial strains, we're not gonna include that as part of a potential override amount, something like? Is that more where you were going?
yeah.
I mean, we can keep it much more open-ended, and we can even take it off of this and just have it as a potential agenda topic. Like I said, it was just something to, if there's anything necessary to establish goals that we'd like to see in, on top of everything that we've already discussed for the budget. All right, so we talked about the schedule a lot. We have some adjustments to make.
So can I make a motion that we keep the September 8th, Monday, September 8th, request that department heads, boards, and interested residents submit all capital items for inclusion in the, the September 2nd, Monday, September 2nd, adopt the budget documents and distribute to department heads and boards and committees. The September 8th request for capital inclusions, and then the November 3rd date of everything is returned to the town administrator and then disseminated to the appropriate department heads and boards and committees as presented here.
I would just, if you didn't include it, can we strike the distribute to department heads, because we do need to make a couple of adjustments to the budget guidance memo?
I'm confused, so are we approving the calendar or we're only approving certain dates on the
We're
calendar?
approving the first couple just so that we can get the information to the department heads to submit those capital requests for September 8th, cause if we don't
Okay, but we're
adopt
not distributing the budget docs to the department heads, just asking for the capital budget.
Correct, because we need to make those a couple of
Okay.
adjustments to the guidance memo before they can go out. We can't send them out as of the 2nd because they need some amendments.
Okay. But do they need to come back before the board, sorry to be confusing, but do they need to come back before the board with the, because we made the motion to approve with the amendments as discussed, so I would assume as soon as those amendments are made, that they could go out, essentially, I would say on September 8th, combine those two, that by September 8th, the guidance goes out to the, David can discuss it at department head meeting that this is coming, and then at the September 8th, both
So
capital
distribute
and
and
annual
budget
and
documents.
budget goes out.
So distribute for September 8th, that gives a couple of days to make those.
Yeah, does that make sense,
Adjustments.
to the rest of the board, like, does that make sense to the rest of the board? I'm just trying to stick to this
Agreed, yeah,
timeline, but also not.
yes, agreed.
The revised calendar will come back to the board at the next meeting?
Yes, with all the additional
Okay,
changes that are
Okay.
being requested tonight, yes.
So
So sorry, Leah.
So I would move that for September 8th, the budget documents request for the fiscal year 27 as well as 5-year capital plan requests are distributed to department heads and boards and committees, and just with a note that any interested residents have that option for the capital as well. And that would be by Monday, September 8th, per our edited motion previously. David can give a heads up at department head meeting tomorrow that it's coming, and Donna has guidance also.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna leave off the October 6th entirely for right now.
Yeah.
And then by November 3rd, Monday, November 3rd, end of business, I'll say, that the budget request forms are submitted back to the town administrator. Can I add in finance director also? Is that okay, David, if it goes to both you and the finance director, or would you rather everything come in through you?
We can talk about that.
Okay. And then, and also the existing 5-year capital plan is submitted to the town administrator, with those documents being disseminated to CIPC and, as requested in as timely a manner as possible. That week, I would assume.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do you have,
yeah, I'll figure it out.
So,
so we've already adopted the budget documents for September 2nd. The distribute portion will be
I thought
added
she left off the September 2nd and changed it to September 8th.
for distribute. The budget documents, the budget guidance documents.
So you guys already approved the budget documents in a separate motion, so we probably don't even need to include that September 2nd date in there, cause you guys already approved those.
right, I just said
I
that
think we can keep it just to say it took place on this. Maybe we can just note that was already done.
I wanted to move
Otherwise-
the distribute to department heads and boards and committees to the September 8th with also the capital requests.
Right. So September 8th stays as is, but is adding distribute the
The fiscal year
27
27.
budget guidance documents
Okay,
to department heads.
okay.
And then same, November 3rd is essentially staying the same, but inclusive of the finance director.
And then
And
what was
yes.
the last part about dissemination?
And then asking that the existing 5-year capital plan that's submitted to the town administrator on November 3rd, by, I'll say the end of that week, it's sent to CIPC for scoring. Because CIPC needs to score the capital.
So November 7th, by November 7th?
Let's see. November 3rd is Monday, so November 7th is Friday.
Okay.
So sent to CIPC by November 7th?
Okay.
Is that?
I'm open to conversation from the board, is that, and David, I don't know what it takes to compile that, I don't know how it normally comes in, but I just want CIPC to get it timely, but I also am aware that it might take a little bit of time from you and Donna to just compile it, I'm not sure how they usually come in.
Honestly, I did not get involved at all with the CIPC last year, so I Boston did that alone, I only got it with the general budget.
So we can update that for now, and if anything changes, and again, we'll have the updated schedule for our next meeting anyways, we can always make an adjustment if for some reason we see that is too aggressive or, okay. Alright, so we have a motion, Tamika, are you comfortable with, okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Alright, motion is second, any other discussion on the budget schedule for now? Alright, roll call, Alex,
Vote aye.
Second, I.
Whitman, I.
That's an aye.
Ledger I.
And then
Alright.
just for next agenda, we will discuss the remaining pieces of
We'll
it.
make the updates and get a clean copy for,
Thank you, sorry for all that confusion.
nope, that's okay. Alright, so just being cognizant of time, I know we have a couple more things that we wanna get through. For the other joint discussion topics with the finance committee, starting with the town council policy. Again, I know we've had some discussions on this already. We have an existing policy, which it sounds like many of us were not aware existed, so we have that now. And David, is this the one? Oh, we already had this form.
This is the one I,
That's the one that you created, okay.
just gives a little bit more detail.
So we have in our packets, a form that was already in existence to request legal services, and then David provided those, options, so I don't know if there was anything that we want to add. I know the concern with finance committee was, some of it was timing and not getting a response back for the request, so I think that's certainly something that we should have as part of the request is determining the timeline for when you need a response on the access. I do agree, I think we still need a way to request access unless the cost is being covered through a committee or board's own funding source.
So you're saying if they had their own funding source, they don't have to fill out this form?
And this is my opinion, if a board or a committee has a funding source, and I think that's on here is it was on here as maybe a suggestion, where are the funds to pay for it coming from? If that board or committee has their own funds to pay for it and they are indicating here that they're using those funds to pay for it, then they can, in my opinion, speak with counsel. If it's coming through the select board and it's our legal fee, our legal accounts that's being expected to fund that request, then I think it needs to go through the approval process.
So the way if I may, Jen, the way our current policy reads is that only department heads and board committee chairs under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction or their designees are authorized to consult legal in accordance with these procedures. Department heads or board committee members are
Not under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction.
right. So if they fall under our jurisdiction, then they need to essentially go through this form, is the way I interpret this. And if they aren't under our jurisdiction, but are authorized by their respective board or committee to consult with legal, they should give notice to the town administrator because it would need to be billed appropriately so like planning board would give notice that, hey, they,
We're gonna be using it, but it's gonna be out of our money.
right.
Sure. Which is fine, I don't, if we, I don't have a concern with how that's
Right.
outlined here.
Right.
And if we wanna use that as a paper trail to say, we're
Right.
not gonna deny, it's just a paper trail to say, we need to access it, we're gonna pay for it.
And that's a way to
Right.
track it,
Right.
things get lost.
That's
And all of
fine.
a sudden you say, oh,
That's-
dude, sent the form in
But
3
I
weeks
think-
ago, I never heard a response, then you have a way to track it if it's.
We have a purchase order in this VADAR program, why can't we use that?
But I think,
You know, where the finance committee, all due respect, is totally autonomous from the select board. And we're totally autonomous from the town administrator. And to be told no by either of those two people is wrong. So we can do it a couple different ways. We could put a line item in for legal counsel services in our budget if we wanna do that. But we don't come to the TA or the select board ever. We came for a decision, we wanted something to be, we wanted to review something, we couldn't do it last year. And I don't wanna be put, if you guys wanna do this, that's fine, we'll just put a line item in our budget that says financial, a line for legal counsel.
Or we just take it out of reserve fund.
The point here too is though, this is the first time this has happened in 15 years or 20 years. It's never been asked for. It was one simple thing that would have amounted to next to nothing. The way this policy is written, if we had known about this, it would have been done, over with, and it wouldn't have been, I'm sure there would have been a charge for town council, but it wouldn't have been very much. It was a simple question we had. That's the first time it's ever happened that I know
So
of.
in your view, right, we fall under the board, under a committee that's not under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction, so all that's required would be notice, right?
No, we have to get approval by.
No, that's not
No,
what
no,
this
no,
says.
no.
This just says notice here.
All we have to do is give notice. And
If-
you have to be, we have to charge you to ask to get the legal services.
Well, then I don't mind that, if it just says notice, I'm fine with
No,
it.
it's just
Question
notice.
is, do you fall under the jurisdiction of the select board?
No,
Negative.
they don't.
So if you don't, then all you gotta notify is the board,
Just to let
or
them,
the town administrator, that's it.
Yeah. That was the question that we had in the
That's
last
right.
meeting,
It's
was
simple.
whether or not we fall under the jurisdiction.
And
The
we don't.
key term though is
No, that wasn't the
notified.
question.
Right.
That
We
was-
asked permission, they asked, I wasn't on the board yet, they asked permission, but it was a town administrator who said that you couldn't do it because it went against something that the select board had already
Right, and that was
made a
wrong.
decision on, so.
Based on this
And I think
this is
that-
policy, not
So I
bylaw,
think the
so.
notification part
Right.
would solve all of this.
Yeah, I think
Both
we're,
underlined it.
I see what
if
you're
everybody
saying.
agrees that we're not under the jurisdiction, then I think it's, sorry,
Just
Darren.
leave this
No,
the
it's
way it
perfect.
is. Leave
Just
it-
leave this the way it is,
Right.
okay, we're good, we'll notify
Thank
it
you.
next time we wanna do it. We won't
The next
ask
20 years over
and get denied, a slow roll, or however you wanna say it. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Leave it alone.
I think as part of this discussion though, again, because this obviously was not a known policy, if we can please distribute this to make sure that,
Well, I think all of our policy and procedures should be available, and
Yes.
it's something I've been pushing for, and they still seem to be piecewise, and I think it's a challenge because they're all over the place, and we don't have a comprehensive list from, I mean, this one was done in 2016.
These are all available on the website in one document with a checklist at the beginning, and then as the board's been going through and updating them, we've been creating new tabs on that same page to put the updated ones. So
Okay,
they all
so-
are in one central location on the select board page under policies and procedures.
as that one big giant,
Correct, it's all the policies in one that have not been updated yet.
okay,
With the checklist on the top that tells you all of the policies that are contained within it.
okay,
And then as the board's been updating them over the years, we've been putting the brand new ones or
Individual
revised
ones.
ones in a separate section so
okay.
that they can easily be parsed out.
So, I guess to Leah's comment, even if we haven't reviewed or updated them, they're still current, right, with their current state. If there's a way that we can work to separate them and post them individually, because they're still active in that state, even if they haven't been reviewed or updated. it would just be for,
We can, but I would argue that they're only as good as if people know that they're there.
which is why I'm kind of asking, can we separate each policy out into its own link and update that page with the individual policies? Because to me, sort of, yeah, so that when I go and search on the website, I can be directed to that page and I can look through that list and not have to, like, to me, I was just on that page and it was not discoverable to me that we had a whole packet of all of the policies. I was looking at the list of the individual ones and saying, oh, we don't have
You
everything
have to read it like
posted.
twice to see to click here for the other list.
Right.
It's not that easy
It's
for
not easy.
for those of us who are challenged.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's, obviously, it's not a super priority, but if we can add that to a list of things to try and
And the
Update.
checklist needs to be rotated.
I know, I've
It's-
tried that and it won't let, I've tried and it's giving me a hard time. I know what you're saying though.
All the PDF documents with text in them so that presumably it would search?
Yes,
Okay.
cause I've done that myself. You can do the control F and it's a searchable document.
Cause this one looks
I think we beat that one up.
Alright, so back to town council policy. No requested edits. We're leaving it as is. We've discussed,
Leaving
clarified.
it as is, but I'm gonna shoot me in the foot here, but it could cost you a lot of money.
Not for the finance committee.
No, I'm not saying for the finance committee, but other elected boards and commissions, if they're just notifying you anybody that was voted in, so.
Well, but those are, well, we've got planning board, which their legal fees go to their
Right.
accounts.
That's correct. I will say that there is no form of notification right now, and when I get the invoices, just parse out what's supposed to be going to whom.
Mm-hmm.
KP law does label it into sections, so there is a section specifically for planning board, but then I have to go in and figure out, is that an administrative account, is that a subdivision account? So historically, there has been no form of notification between boards and committees as to when and why they're using town council services.
Well, if, to dovetail right into the next one. If we have this VADAR program that we pay a lot of money for, and it's supposed to be like a Ferrari, and we don't use certain parts of it, we should start using parts of it, i.e. purchase orders. I can talk to the town administrator, and when I inform him that we're gonna use town council, he'll know it, he can put a purchase order, so when she gets the bill, she can go through it. But as of right now, maybe someone up there will know, we're not using a purchase order program, maybe I'm misspoken, but can someone deny that? We're not using it, we gotta get going on that.
I don't necessarily disagree, but we're off topic. I wanna,
No, it's financial policies, that's topic number
I know, but
next.
that's not the topic for financial policies for tonight. I
Okay,
wanted to discuss the stabilization. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
necessarily disagree, but
no,
given
you're
the-
right, I'm off
So
topic.
we'll just
Um,
keep spending money.
So I just to circle back to town council, for as far as tonight's discussion, the finance committee, we've gotten some clarification, the finance committee is comfortable with the existing policy. We'll do some work to try and clean up that, the links on the website and individually post available policies as time permits.
Is the board adopting the form that David created or are we using the existing
We're
one?
just gonna, whatever,
Okay.
whatever we have that's already in existence for now, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on the town council policy?
I mean, this I think should be a future agenda item, but to Carol's point, I think that this is one that should be reviewed at some point because it does allow notice, but it's not it doesn't explicitly document that the notice has to be tied to a funding source.
Yep.
And so I think that it needs, but I think that should be an additional, I just wanted to address FinCom's concern.
Agreed.
And so.
Okay, we'll do a little bit more review and bring that up in the future. Okay, for the financial policy, this one, again, the goal here is to specifically talk about the recently approved school maintenance stabilization fund that was from this just recent May town meeting. And the purpose of that was to allocate the funds that we receive from the school district to be utilized specifically for the schools, whereas right now it just goes into the general fund and there's no guarantee that that money gets utilized for those purposes. So I wanted to bring it here to discuss where in the financial policies we should update to include those. And in going through, I know Finance Committee kind of talked about it last time at your meeting. We do have the section, not financial policies, hold on, right towards the beginning. It's in the financial reserves, section B, under stabilization funds, where we already have the general stabilization fund and the capital stabilization fund. Does it make sense to add in the school maintenance stabilization fund and add verbiage as to how that gets appropriated, how it's going to end up getting utilized for
Page are you on?
the school? In the financial policies, it's on page 11.
Are
Thank
we
you.
talking about the 75,000?
Yes, well,
Okay.
so this, I pulled the agreement, so it's for all three schools for FY '26, it'll be just over 82,000.
That's what we're talking about, not the Wachusett Capital Stabilization.
No,
Fund.
no.
Okay.
Okay.
I personally think it makes sense to put it in that stabilization piece, Jen. I'm not sure if it needs to go to town meeting to authorize that as a fund, like a actual funding appropriation source. But I agree that as a policy, it should be added to that part, and with the language that through town meeting appropriation, it would come from that line item of the WRSD.
Cause I again, just trying to see how this money comes to us, it seems like it comes in two payments, one in November and one in, what was it, May? I think. So the timing of that kind of aligns with the town meeting, so would it be appropriate to appropriate at special town meeting that portion into the stabilization fund and then?
Yeah, the board can make whatever policy they want, but keep in mind that's 82,000 less than you'll have in revenue for the operating budget.
But yeah,
But the goal of it is that it's there to be appropriated for the maintenance of the school athletic fields and parking lots.
What Don is trying to say is this year it was included in the operating funds for the general fund. So for this year, it's not going there.
Understood.
So going
if we have
forward,
going
we can do
forward-
it, but that will be less, it will not be in the top lines going
Understood.
forward.
so in the generation of the fiscal year 27 budget, we essentially would need to increase revenue by 82,000 or whatever it works out to be next year.
Decrease.
Decrease revenue, yes, decrease revenue by that. So,
That
yes.
deposit's not gonna come into the checking account, it's gonna go over into
No,
line.
well, and that's in my head, I was thinking that we would need to
Come
raise
up with it somewhere else.
raise revenue, not,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Which, I mean, again, in my opinion, to be perfectly frank, it should be used for the schools, that's why we're getting it, it's in our maintenance agreement to use it for parking lots and field maintenance. And we should not be just including it as part of our general fund revenues to be utilized for non-school expenses.
So I agree that, I mean, to me, it makes sense that it goes in the under stabilizations, and then with and I don't know, I think that it would have to be appropriated at town meeting, but language as to what the intent of it and where it would come from, and whether we decide to do it biannually or we decide to do it at the annual town, at every annual, the total lump sum or whatever, I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I think you can do it at the annual, with a lump sum for sure, because the annual would be for the the following, rather,
Yeah.
fiscal year.
Okay, that would make sense.
But it does I mean, there's plowing, there is still some being done with that funding in our operating budget.
Right. I mean, and if we were to expend the money from that, obviously it's gonna need a town meeting vote. But it's also, you know, can we don't have to, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm reading this is it's used for the parking lot and the athletic field maintenance. So we don't necessarily have to expend all $82,000 on plowing. We can retain money in the stabilization fund for a repaving, you know, we could save it for repaving of one of the parking lots or for putting
Sidewalk repair.
or putting in new dugouts on the baseball field. That's all athletic field maintenance for the purposes of the schools and use. So we could appropriate X amount for.
I was gonna say, we could appropriate $40,000 every year for plowing and like just routine maintenance,
Right.
lawn mowing and all of that.
Right.
And I don't know what the number is, that would be a DPW question.
Right.
But, and then the remaining would remain in stabilization that would then have to be authorized to be utilized.
Right.
Additionally and above and beyond. So essentially it would be part of it would come out as a source of revenue every year.
Mhm.
And then, but part of it would stay there, because I think that's been the concern over with the really tight budget years, is that based on the regional agreement and because of hours of operation of school, we need to be able to maintain the space to ensure school's open, and on years that DPW has been really hit hard, that money was not there. So
So it sounds like we want to do a little bit more finesse on when to appropriate, how to appropriate, how much. I mean, again, these are policies, so we're trying to come up with, you know, appropriate, you know, what is it, a percentage to regular plowing maintenance versus how much do we retain that doesn't get appropriated for those types of things, so sounds like continued discussion. Do we want to reach out to Director Kolofsky to ask his input on, like, can he provide estimates as to specifics for plowing and mowing for these areas?
that would make sense if, you know, for those areas, and obviously it's gonna be an estimate, it's not gonna be a hard and fast number, and it's gonna vary year to year, especially on the winter side. But if he feels like half of the money is legitimately used for schools, then we can
Start there.
Or
Alright, so Tamika, we can reach out to Chris to kind of see if he's got some information. Any comments or anything from Finance Committee? Okay, alright, we'll see if we can get some more information, but at least it sounds like we're all in agreement to add something under the stabilization funds section. Just what that policy is, continued discussion. Okay. Anything else from? Alright, so we'll do a little bit more on that and come back to it. We have it on here, the town administrator search discussion. Is there anything else that we didn't cover tonight that the finance committee would like to share?
The salary survey, I think having a public salary survey that establishes what the actual market rate is important. Because we're trying to set up to sell this to our constituents, that this person should get whatever the number ends up being. So I think we need to be careful in assessing what the surrounding towns are, what similar communities are, to get a fair cut. And Harry's done this, right? So maybe that's a starting point, but all this data is public. This is not a secret. Let's just write it down and say, like, here's all the towns.
See, the issue you have is, if you're living in a town of 10,000 people and you have X dollars, and now you live in a town with 25,000 people, which has the same acreage as Rutland, but more business, so there's more interaction.
It's not,
How do you justify the pay scale?
it's
So that's
not,
what I'm saying is, the guys coming in will know what their qualifications are and how they fit for our town. Maybe we end up paying 160, I don't know, maybe we end up paying less.
I think it's important to show what the spectrum has, and I think you're right, there's a number of different aspects to it, whether it's commercial development, your proximity to interstates, there's all kinds of variables that you could plug in there. But showing the spectrum will help people understand what the going rate is, so we
I
don't have
think
to
the
take
co-
anybody's word for it, we can just say, look, here's the data.
I think the Collins Center should be able to do that for us.
Absolutely,
You
it
know?
would be great.
I think they said they were gonna do that.
Yeah.
What's that?
They said they were gonna do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So if that could be published so that it's a document that says like, hey, here's our analysis and here's the data that went into that analysis, and we think as a result that whatever, 150K or 140K, sorry, is the right number. Great, but let's have that full data set there.
Yeah, I'm sure we can review with the Collins Center that
Right.
we talked about that. I think we need to just be careful about taking the surrounding towns' salaries as market rate, because some of them are going to have a salary based on what they can afford, not necessarily what the market rate is. And we're kind of in that position where we're trying to balance what we can afford with getting in somebody at the right rate for what the role requires. So it just, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah,
Just
and
we
it's
can't
different
say-
responsibilities, right? Certain towns have HR, certain ones.
Right, and if you've looked at our town administrator bylaw, there's a lot of responsibility on that one person. So I think we will have access to that information, and we'll certainly keep that at the forefront. I don't know that we're gonna have a choice,
I just think it's important, like he said, put it up on the website so that people know that we've done the due diligence.
Yeah.
So they don't see it posted and they go, what?
where did you come
And
up
then you
with
can
that?
go in and you can see it.
Any other? Just lost my agenda. Anything else on the town administrator?
I wanna thank FinCom and RDIC and COA for supplying letters of feedback for the town administrator search, so thank you for taking that time and providing that.
All right, if we're all, anything else, on any of those topics before we move on? Okay, all right. Donna, thank you for being patient. We'll move into the proposed meeting article for the adjustment to the FY26 operating budget. So we got the information from Donna.
So there's been many talks since May 9th or 10th, whatever town meeting was, that that we need to do some restorative to and I think honestly, when we all went to town meeting, we all knew that there would be a need to restore some budgets at the November meeting. I know it's not always typical, but it's not on every town meeting, but it is typical to do some type of restorative. I don't think we've probably done to the extent that maybe I gave a recommendation. I don't even like the word recommendation from me. All I've put together is what we could do if the board so wanted to. I wanted to provide the Board of Selectmen time to review, to make decisions, and then present what they were comfortable with to maybe to the Finance Committee before the special town meeting. So my proposals use every it's using every last revenue source possible. It's not It's not perfect, it's not where I would ever want to recommend. But I think Rutland is at a time where there are great concerns that maybe we want to go to the absolute limit with revenues. Obviously, we all know that you want revenues to be conservatively low estimated and expenses to be estimated high. That's where you want a surplus to be a strong community. That is obviously what generates free cash. So these numbers in 27 would probably generate an extremely low free cash. But there have been many conversations with boards at selectmen level and finance committee levels that they would be submitting in a request and they would be submitting in a need in order to just operate between now and June. So this suggestion puts one article, would make sense. To have a different article by every department would be chaos, in my opinion. This is a starting point. I sent it in Excel so the select board could go through it and make whatever changes you feel is best for the community to run between now and, well, obviously November and June, but between now and June. I gave, in the, I don't think we wanna talk line to line, it's late, but certainly you can ask me as to why I make any suggestions, but there are some new ones that we found even before town meeting or right after before June 30th that we need in this budget. Weights and measures, we have an assessment from the Commonwealth that came in June that I don't think we even knew that we had that, so we have to appropriate for that. We have some leases with the photocopier that we need to take care of that the current budget will not cover. So that's about all I was trying to help you have a starting point and one article for the office, not 7 or 8.
And this is not free cash.
No, I'm not recommending, nothing in this is coming from free cash. Again, what I am doing is outside of the norm. I am recommending that we go to the absolute highest level of estimating local revenue. It's not what I would want to be recommending, but I'm providing you the top level as to what we can do to help our town operate. The board of selectmen can decide whether or not that's not a good plan for the future, but
So if we increase the estimated local revenues and they don't come in at that estimated amount, what happens to that? Like what's the risk?
so yes, there are risks to that for sure. This also does an estimate, because new growth was estimated at 250. It is increasing that. It probably won't be that. I've had some preliminary conversations with the assessors and she does expect it to be, so there is a number in there that I'm using for the new growth over 250. So yes, there is a risk. I don't believe I've presented anything that would present a negative revenue, but we could have a surplus of $100. But I don't have a crystal ball, I cannot promise you,
So
right,
just to what happens if we put in an estimated local revenue number and we don't reach that?
It would depend on the amount that you don't reach. So if we had a negative revenue and all of our appropriations were spent, then you could essentially have a negative free cash.
So, and that does what? I mean, obviously, we drain cash, but is that like a state do we get in trouble with the state? Is that
If you have a negative free cash, then you'd have to raise it on the recap for the next year, so yes, you definitely do not want a negative free cash.
If I may,
Go ahead.
how does your estimates compare with the last couple of years in terms of like, if you'd applied the same estimation strategy over the last couple of years, how would it have worked out?
So this one is really applying what came in last year, and I'm not taking an average. An average is kind of what was done with the May meeting, a very conservative average, so I'm giving you absolutely everything you possibly could spend if you so deem the best policy.
So just to clarify the mechanism here, if we did this with free cash and then we still had those excess revenues would then just refill the free cash?
Yes.
Let me understand, Donna. The STM recommend, that is to get us to where?
Fiscal 25 rates in 80%, and I don't really, a large majority, so,
So is this,
what I tried to get together was to restore library to where they were in 25, to restore, it's not a perfect plan, because, the fire department had increases in wages because of the union contracts, and it was necessary. So it's not taking into account that there was an increase there, but it's taking into the fact that there were other decreases. So it would get his expenses to where he was in 25. Town clerk, it's getting her almost to where she was in 25, but it's not giving the election wages. We don't have the elections in this current fiscal year for that need.
okay. So the recommended is gonna be restoring it to 25.
In most cases, yes. That was my starting point. Then when I felt, to restore it, I think we needed 580. I couldn't give us 580.
Okay, so you're requesting that the board access another $2,000 for select board purchase services, but you really want $4,000 to get it back to fiscal 25.
I think the 2000, that STM recommend column is what Donna's recommending with the funds we have available. So we can't get to the 4,000, we don't have enough money.
So that STM is using top line revenue, not the other one. The other one doesn't use top line, but that's what it would take to get up to 25?
To get up to 25, we would need,
No, I'm saying, because you mentioned we're using top line revenue, max revenue.
Uh,
Which column applies to that?
special town meeting recommend, and I don't even like the word recommend, because
Okay.
I'm not trying to recommend, I just,
She's informing.
thank you.
Okay,
But if it was to come forth by the select board, that would be what you would recommend, so.
okay. Because I'm looking at some very big numbers, but I do wanna sit down with you and go over this with you, okay? But I'm looking at some very big numbers here, and I'm looking at highway wages. 20,000 will get us back to 25 maximum revenue, but 189 will get us to what the department needs. I'm
No,
trying to-
this is not what they need at all, and so, there is an explanation that the highway wages had a significant, surplus at year end. They used that to cover the deficit for snow and ice,
Okay,
so we wouldn't have that available to us.
okay,
But I think it,
The second column is restorative to 25, the first column is theoretically what we can afford.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And the second column, restored to 25, is what 25 numbers were, not 25 plus any increase.
Right.
It was what fiscal year 25 was.
Right.
And then,
And it is what fiscal 25 annual town meeting was. So, throughout the year, there were some transfers within the departments. I didn't get to that level. I
Not important.
thought it would be just too complicated to do that. So, it is what was voted at annual town meeting for.
Okay. Follow-up question, if I may. Wachusett assessment. We're showing a negative 60,000. Is that coming off our original budget item? So the original school amount we paid, they came and said, we're gonna bring this back to you, so that's the 60 you're taking off here.
Didn't we do something with the boiler though on that?
Yeah, so it was 120, so that's what's left over.
Really?
Yeah.
It's really, well, you gotta say that to him, 'cause he doesn't know that.
So they lowered it by 120,000 and we used 60, that rough numbers for the boiler. So there is 60,000 that will allow us to plug it back into our operating budget.
Okay. Where's that 60,000 sitting now in cash?
It's been expended,
It
right?
just hasn't been paid yet.
No, we got 120.
But
We
it's
paid
120
for
off
the
the
boiler.
assessment.
Right.
Not a check, but off of
They
the
decreased
assessment.
we don't owe, we owe
Less.
less.
Okay. Because if we owe less, then why is that coming off money that we actually, so I go to the end here and I'm looking at 348, 297. Shouldn't that be $60,000 higher?
No, the appropriation at town meeting will lower, the vote will be to lower the assessment on the school, to take it
Okay.
out of the school line item, to
All
put
right.
it into another line item for the community.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Alright, so this board needs some time to review.
Mm,
I definitely have some,
yeah,
I think it was last year, this same time where we were looking at additional revenues and I think it was the new growth was over projected. It ended up coming in significantly under what the projection was. I don't wanna run into that, something like that. I mean, it was, I wanna say it was around 200,000 something difference, which is a big number for us. So I just wanna be very mindful of what we're using for numbers and what we're considering for this article.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather use free cash to pay for something like this if we would decided that this is the way and then refill that free
Refill it.
cash with actuals.
What we have.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the work, Donna, that you did to kind of see what our kind of maximum revenue would be, and then that gives us, for me personally, my concern I share with Jen and Alex is not cutting it too close.
Yeah.
And especially in such tumultuous years where we may have unexpected expenses that we're not sure of. So, and knowing that the number that you have given us, the roughly 348 is a sizable chunk. But if we can utilize that as free cash and then still potentially have some wiggle room, and not completely deplete all free cash, we haven't talked about free cash numbers yet, and I know that those numbers aren't certified, so I don't want to get into that yet, but I just wanna be mindful that we're trying to do something, and I appreciate seeing what that number could be and how we potentially look at utilizing that number or more or less, but thank you.
Yeah, this is the beginning of a few conversations, I'm certain of it, for sure. Timing of there isn't an awful lot of timing before the warrant is set, so I thought it was better to get it to you sooner than later.
And if I may, I think it's important for department heads to be aware that we're talking about looking at ways to at least look at that 348 number so that they may or may not come at us with all the free cash requests. You know, I think that we're all being mindful that a lot of the purchase services, all the purchase services took major hits because the directive was to maintain staff and provide the increases to all staff, which is fair, but there needs to be hits on the other side then, and so we're looking at ways to at least make it a more sustainable year.
So would a good way to be talking about the 348 is that we were over conservative to the 348 number, and now we're backing those off a little bit, so it's not putting us in we're not scared, but we're being less conservative than we were.
No, I think this number is, I wouldn't even use the word conservative. These numbers are, my husband got laid off and okay, how much do I have in the checking book to spend? As kind of a silly example, but no, I thought, so there's a lot of discussions and decisions to be made on what direction to go. I don't have a problem going any direction. I heard the many department heads that came to finance committee saying that they will not make it through June 30th. And so I put this together with the few things I know we have to make it through June 30th.
And that comes to 348. Close.
Yes, I mean,
But I think you, if I may, you did some looking at the revenue, our revenue numbers, local receipt numbers, and put them almost like to the max, that I think probably municipal finance is kind of hedgy about going that close to the max. But in a year such as this, where we don't have any other funding options, you're kind of putting your skin on the line to say, based on tight historicals, I feel that we can hit this 348 number, and how can we best utilize that for the departments that we know from FinCom conversations and TA conversations and everything be utilized.
Putting it to the max, or are we being less conservative? You gotta be careful how you say it.
I'm putting it to the max. I am putting it to the max.
I think that the 348 still is fairly conservative, given that we generally have, I mean, that's essentially what a free cash would look like oftentimes, right? I mean, and there's other pieces to it, but that we don't know what snow and ice deficit's going to be from year to year. If there's, we just got notice that there's a unexpected elevator repair here at the library. You know, we had the school boiler, which thankfully we had that we could shuffle, but sometimes we don't. And so that 348, given a community that doesn't take care of our infrastructure, is not, to me, a super high number. And then to go in and basically utilize that completely would be essentially saying we would have very limited free cash coming from the local receipt side. It would all be from
In the future.
Yes, it would all be coming from unexpended line items or increase in state aid or something. And we know line items are so tight now that there's probably going to be less clearing of free cash, whether it's wages or purchase services.
Free cash, the certified free cash is coming soon. And it will be able to cover the 348 if that's the direction the board wants to go. I guess I put this together knowing all of the finance committee meetings I went to and all the department heads and the amount of reserve fund transfers you've already done. It is out of the ordinary for you to have 4 already in this time of fiscal year, right?
We didn't go the first month and we had a couple.
So I think I laid awake at night thinking I gotta help these department heads make it through June 30th.
And may I, this is my own ignorance on municipal finance, sorry if it derails a little bit, but once this, if we were to go with this 348 by raising local receipts by 348, that's for this year, and then going forward, we have to maintain that per DOR, we can't next year say, oh, we're gonna go back because we have a better fiscal outlook.
So no, we have to justify with them that you made it the year before. So if I estimate something at 600,000 and it comes in at 500,000, the following year, they're not gonna let me use 600 again. But if I estimate 600 and we bring in 700, they'll be okay with letting me estimate 600, because they would prefer us be conservative.
To have free cash or.
Did that answer the
yes,
question? Yeah, they would much prefer, because they do not want us to have any risk of a negative free cash. Yeah.
So if this becomes so close that maybe it's very, very close, next year it's possible to go lower again?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Yep, no,
Thank you.
that was a good question.
Cause I know some things I think, for example, snow and ice, you can't decrease after
With the
your-
appropriation, that
with
is
your
correct.
appropriation. So I just wanted to make sure that for the local receipt side, that you had the wiggle room to go back and forth and not
On the local, you do.
not only increase.
Yes, you do. And this would provide a difficulty to cover, if we get very, very tight and have no free cash, that covers snow and ice, most times,
Thank you. I mean, I personally appreciate this, but would definitely like a little bit more time to digest it.
Yes, thank you, Donna, for the preparation. So if the board's amenable, we'll include this on our next agenda as well. Obviously, we'll have to come to some decision for the
And
warrant article.
I mean, if I may, if FinCom has any kind of feedback or questions also.
Just send to the office for.
I think there was at least a couple meetings where we talked about how conservative we should be, especially talking about what we're doing now. And there's certain wounds that don't, you can't fix it after the fact with free cash, right? And so that's, I don't know if that had anything to do with where she went here, but like that definitely came up in our meetings.
Anything else on this budget topic? Alright, we're definitely getting there for time, so we have the request for a letter of support. Darren, I know you're here. This is coming from the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee for consideration to send a letter in support of Oakham's fight against the battery energy storage system.
Just that, when Harry brought that up earlier, we just gotta, I think it's gonna negatively affect us, but I don't know what the town's policy is and everything else, so we have to look at all the way around, but they're putting it right on the watershed and they're nervous. And you see the signs everywhere. So we're looking for support from the Ware River Watershed Committee. That's all.
Is there a timeline for when you need this?
As soon as possible,
as
but
possible.
not next week.
So to Harry's point, just to have somebody come in to try and do some education for us to make sure
Yeah,
that we have all
absolutely.
the information before we, is that?
Yeah, one of the things that, and this is what troubles me about, not the battery storage, but the fact that Tesla is one of the biggest battery manufacturers in the world. And they have cooperated with a Chinese manufacturer, which they have developed what they call a sodium ion battery. So instead of worrying about the lithium and processing it and the dangerousness of it, the sodium ion battery is really sodium. So the way you can dispose of that, and this is what an engineer was telling me, is that you can actually take the liquid out of that and dump it in the ocean, because it's basically salt water. And it causes no problems. So their quest to rush through with this makes me question what they're doing when that type of technology can be available within a year. So could they wait a year to do that? I don't know. So that whole process, what they're doing, and the fact that the governor has signed a bill that pushes this through, makes me question again, so.
The landscape of energy storage is changing so fast right now.
Right.
We don't need to rush in. The region shouldn't rush into anything like this.
Particularly if you're looking at 35 acres of these.
Grid scale storage, I mean, I could probably talk for a couple hours on it,
Right.
but just wait. You're absolutely right.
I think that Oakham is in a position where they can't wait, because they've got a company that is suing them to get to build.
And they're just looking for a letter of support
And they're
so that
trying
they can
to
fight
fight
the
it.
fight.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so,
you should make up, board should make up their own mind based on the presentation, but I think that is an important support that Oakham hopefully can get from us.
Yeah. I think the way the energy structured governmentally in Boston is structured, this is a done deal. So we can write the letter or not write the letter, but the governor, I believe, along with, what am I talking about here? Along with Energy Facilities Sitting Board is under review by that state agency, which has been pushed by the governor.
They asked on the Ware River Watershed, the town of Oakham came to our last meeting, just to get the background, not to beat this to death.
Yep.
They asked the DCR to support them, and because it's literally a line of between me to the body that this is on. And it affects DCR property and it all goes into the watershed, and they all sat on their hands and could not speak to it because they were given a directive to, this is the direction we're going, and they can't say a word about it. So they're just asking for support.
That's what I'm
That's all.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
And it's not, I don't wanna get into politics, but they were given a direction that this is the way we're going, and you're not gonna comment. So we did everything we could at a meeting to try to support them, like the gate issues and things like that. They were told, we're gonna close the gates. You guys wrote a great letter of support to leave the gates open, it didn't work. It's, all we're doing is just trying to build consensus, that's all, and
I mean,
not to belay this.
that was the thing I got to, is that if we wanna learn more about it before we do the letter, great, but I think writing a letter personally and saying the effect that, why is the rush? The battery storage is gonna get better, we can have safer stuff in the future. We'll support you not having it at this point, something like that. But I get the feeling, talking with my engineer, this is a done deal.
It is a done deal, unfortunately. 98 batteries.
I mean, I would think the letter is, I would be okay supporting it. I think that it's amazing to me that DCR has become so, it's been such a battle to keep access, passive recreation access available to the Ware River Watershed area, and the state park and everything, but something of this magnitude, it's
Falls on deaf ears.
write that down
Right.
on the letter.
And so for me, it's like, there's a lot of other brownfield space in communities that could potentially serve this purpose, where I don't understand the need to have it in such a resource intensive protected area when it's become so protective for even mountain bikers or us to walk ourselves.
Can't let your dog swim in Long Pond anymore because it affects the watershed.
Right,
But we can let the battery storage
right.
directly.
Right.
But that's
so-
all, yeah. If you guys, maybe you can craft the letter, you know it, and I can help you about.
Right.
I'm just gonna say, in the interest of time, what's the board's feelings on the letter that's before us? Would we like to hold off as a board? And if you would like to submit your own individual letters, obviously that's your prerogative, or is the board amenable to?
I mean, I'm comfortable sending a letter on behalf of the board but I don't know if we wanna add in anything about the restricted access for our residents, just access to the space, the land, whether it's hunting or.
We already did that. and-
Right, but I
and
think it's,
tie it together. And I can give you a sample of Hubbardston, I can get you guys a sample of what Hubbardston and Oakham, everybody's written, if you guys would like.
like I said, I'm in support of supporting the.
Yeah, so am I.
Do we want a motion for that?
If the board is comfortable, we have, I can entertain a motion to draft a letter of support to the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee on behalf of the town of Oakham related to the matter of battery energy storage systems. We have the letter presented, if the board is comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second,
Okay, motion and second, any other discussion? Alright, roll call, Alex?
Hold on.
second I.
And I,
That's all right.
Ledger I.
Perfect.
The interesting thing about this, on these battery storage, they gotta put down a significant concrete base on 180 megawatts. I can't even imagine
It's
that,
98 trailer truck size batteries.
I can't even imagine what it takes to put that down and the effect it'll have on that environment.
Alright, not to rush, but
Okay.
I'm sure everybody wants to get out of here. We have our last regular agenda item is statement of claim. This is essentially, we need to make the approval for the to be able to place a lien on the property at 91 Central Tree for the $3,500 that was expended for the demolition of the structure. This is related to the structure fire that happened a couple of weeks ago. It's my understanding that there was no insurance, which is why the town had to expend the funds to
I'll
do the
make a
demolition.
motion to approve the statement of claim for 91 Central Tree Road as presented.
Second motion.
Any other discussion? Alright, Alex,
Alright.
Second I.
Wyman, I.
Matt's and I.
and Ledger I. Are there any future agenda requests? We have the town council policy that will do a little bit more. We have obviously the budget FY26 budget adjustment. Any other future agenda topics for right now?
I think we wanted to update the calendar, the rest of the
Yep.
fiscal year
Yep, we'll get that.
27 calendar.
Could we
Anything
put
else?
on the next agenda, or at least try to answer the question why we're not using the purchase order system?
We can take a look into that.
Thank you.
See what we can find.
The
You
discussion
should
at
see what you missed. You wouldn't be laughing.
The discussion at FinCom was about introducing the purchase orders perhaps at a higher dollar value and then lowering it over time as people get comfortable with the system and maybe get a permanent TA.
And I know we've had discussions as a board about the purchase orders. I'm pretty sure we even
I thought we had
authorized it to
reauthorized
the existing policy that we
existing
had,
policy.
so I think it's just a matter of why that's
Well,
not
it's not happening.
being utilized, so we'll follow up on that too. Alright, and then we have upcoming board meetings. We have September 15th, October 13th.
I missed one in there. There's one on September 29th.
Oh, yep,
Sorry.
now that you're saying
There's
it.
an extra this month.
Thank you. September 29th, October 23rd is where we'll be reviewing the warrant articles, making recommendations and doing the placement. And then that's a Thursday, right? I believe. And then October 27th, regular Monday meeting. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board?
If not, I move to adjourn to executive session for reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, subject to DCR sewer matter, not to return to open session to adjourn from executive session.
Second all, guys.
Alright, motion and a second.
We have to go up.
Discussion.
Do adjourn.
No, I.
Second I.
David,
No, I need to know who makes the
Ledger
motion
I.
in a second though.